Chapter 14:11. Someone saw Charlotte going to Policye's house through the tree corridor in the air. It was normal because it was on the street of the tribe, and there were so many people coming and going that he could not avoid everyone's sight. But the person who came to find him was Amagang, which was not normal. Amagang liked Longier, and he wanted to get rid of Policye, who knew his secret. To him, Charlotte was an enemy that he wanted to kill. He dreamed of a chance to get rid of Policye and Charlotte, and if there was no chance, he would create one. That was why he sent people to spy on Policye and Charlotte, and once he got the news, he would come to catch them in the act. If you want to put a crime on someone, you can always find a pretext. Ma Gang actually didn't care whether Xiaolei and Policye had slept together or not. All he needed to do was trap the two of them in the room, and then he could accuse them of crimes with his mouth. Nonsense. Policye lost control of his emotions. We didn't do anything. We are innocent. Boom. The door was kicked open, and Amagang stood at the door, looking at Charlotte and Policye coldly. Several hunters from the hunting team who came with him moved quickly and blocked the door and window in the blink of an eye. Charlotte smiled and said lightly, "I won't run away. Why are you blocking the door?" Amagang raised his left arm and pointed at Charlotte's nose. He said coldly, "How can you still smile? Do you know what you and this bitch will face?" Charlotte looked at his bandaged right hand. "It's well bandaged. Does it still hurt? Be careful. Don't ruin your left hand too." It would have been better if Xiaolei hadn't raised his right hand, but the moment he did, Amagang couldn't help but roar. He raised his left hand and slapped Xiaolei's face. A hunter hurriedly held Amagang in his arms. "Captain, we've already called the people from the council. He's trying to provoke you. Don't argue with him. He won't be happy for long." Amar put his left hand down and sneered. "I almost fell into your trap again. You humans are more cunning than rats. But I won't be fooled by you again. You and Policye had an affair, so you'll be sent to the council for trial and then burned to death in the Sky Square in front of everyone. Which eye of yours saw us having an affair?" Policye asked angrily. Alma pointed at his left eye and then at his right eye. "I saw it with both eyes, and so did everyone in the hunting group." "Yes, we all saw it." Hunter, who tried to dissuade Amagong from making a move, gloated. "We saw you doing that on the bed. We're all witnesses." The hunter, who was guarding the window, said, "I even heard you insulting Brother Gaia. I really feel bitterly disappointed for him. You shameless woman." "Nonsense. You won't have a good end." Policye held her head in her hands and pulled her hair hard. She was about to go crazy. Charlotte grabbed her hands and said to her, "Don't be like this. Trust me, we'll be fine." Amagang sneered. "You still want to lie to me at this time? It's not enough that you lied to Longier, and now you're lying to Brother Gaia's woman. Do you really think this is your territory? You're from the Ahemish tribe, and you'll die here." Charlotte looked at Alma. There was no anger or fear on his face, only coldness. "If you're smart enough, you'll kneel down and apologize to Policye and Gaia. If you do that, I'll consider letting you live." Alma was stunned for a moment, then laughed. "What did you say? You want me to kneel down and apologize to this bitch? Apologize to Gaia? You'll consider letting me live? Ha! You're crazy. Ha ha ha." The hunters in the other hunting groups also laughed out loud. Charlotte's expression was still so calm. His eyes were getting colder and colder, and his pupils were getting darker and darker. Wanting Amagang to die was as easy as breathing for him. At this time, he really had the intention to kill. He only needed a thought, and Alma would jump down from the tree. He could even treat Amagang and his men as food and eat them. But at this moment, Policye suddenly went behind Charlotte and stood in front of him, blocking his view. "Alma, don't you want me to die? I can satisfy you. This has nothing to do with Mr. Xia. I seduced him. He doesn't know anything. Let him go. I'll let you do whatever you want." Alma said fiercely, "Don't even think about it. You'll all die." "Captain, Counselor Uriah, and Speaker Lingmu have brought their men here." A hunter sneered. "There's going to be a good show." Charlotte looked down and instantly saw through the ground between his and Policye's feet. He saw Walaya and an old man in a white robe climbing up. The old man was very old, and his blue-black skin was wrinkled like tree bark. However, His eyes were still very deep, and he gave off a feeling of wisdom. His legs were still very agile, and he was not slower than Uriah when climbing the stairs inside the tree. The Akimis tribe has no chief. The council has absolute power. This old man, called Lingmu, is the speaker, which means he's the highest leader of the Akimis tribe. If he has the bloodline of Langi, then it'll be troublesome. If he doesn't, then it'll be easy to deal with. Charlotte had already begun to think of a countermeasure. Uriah and Speaker Lingmu quickly came to the front of Polisai's treehouse. Amma bowed to Lingmu and said respectfully, "Speaker Lingmu." The white-haired Speaker Lingmu just nodded lightly. Amma took 2 steps back, letting go of the door he was blocking. Speaker Lingmu's gaze shifted to Charlotte. His gaze seemed to be able to see through Charlotte's body and soul. Charlotte deliberately avoided Speaker Lingmu's gaze and lowered his head slightly. "Hello, Speaker Lingmu." Speaker Lingmu ignored Charlotte's greeting and shifted his gaze to Polisai. Polisai's body could not help but shiver. He could not hide the fear that came from the bottom of his heart. Charlotte. Uriah did not even use the most basic form of greeting and directly called Charlotte by his name. "You're really capable. Ever since you came to our tribe, there has not been a day of peace here. You've already obtained the most beautiful woman in our tribe, and you're still not satisfied. You even dare to touch our tribe's widows. We Akimis men only marry one wife and one husband in our lifetime. Loyalty is as important to us as life itself. You and Polisai have hooked up and done something that insults the dead. You will face the trial of the council. If more than half of the council members find you guilty, then you will face the punishment of burning. But I think only the raging fire can purify your filthy bodies and souls. No, this has nothing to do with Mr. Xia. It's all my fault." Polisai suddenly lost control. She cried and shouted, "Kill me! Burn me! I've had enough." But Mr. Xia should not be punished in any way, because he did nothing wrong. You received the whipping at the council. He was the one who treated the wound on your back, right? Speaker Lingmu finally spoke. His voice was like the sound of the wind blowing through an ice valley, cold and merciless. We, Polisai suddenly roared. "I treated it myself." Uriah suddenly waved his hand. A slap landed on Polisai's cheek. Slap! Uriah's slap was extremely ruthless. Polisai staggered and her entire body crashed into Charlotte's arms. If not for Charlotte supporting her, she would have fallen to the ground. But even so, her left cheek was slightly swollen, and a trace of blue blood flowed out of the corner of her mouth. Charlotte was fully capable of stopping Uriah, but when Uriah made his move, he was using his branding power to test Speaker Lingmu. It was only when Polisai bumped into his arms that he reacted, but it was already a step too late. However, there was a relaxed expression on his face. In the test just now, he had already come to a conclusion. This Speaker Lingmu did not have the ancient bloodline of Langier. He did not have the ability to heal quickly, nor did he have any immunity to the branding power. In fact, he could guess the result even without the test. Other than Langi, and Father Langi, the rest of the Akimis in this tribe were the descendants of prisoners. How could they have the mysterious bloodline of the ancient royal family? Uriah took a step forward and waved his hand, wanting to slap Polisai again. Charlotte pulled Polisai behind him and used his body to protect her. Just as Uriah's palm was about to land on Charlotte's cheek, he suddenly stopped and did not slap her again. Beating up Polisai was one thing, but beating up Xia Lei was an entirely different matter. One had to know that the human boy standing in front of him was someone who could beat up the tribe's warrior, Armagang, to play with. The corner of Charlotte's mouth curled up into a smile. "That's right. Restrain yourself. Don't you want a trial? Let's do it then." "Umph." Uriah snorted coldly. "Come with us. Mr. Xia, run. You can't go with them. The Parliament is a scary place. They will kill you." Polisai did not know where she got the courage to say such words in front of Speaker Lingmu and Uriah. Sure enough, before she could finish speaking, Speaker Lingmu roared angrily. "Polisai, just because of what you said, you should be burned at the stake. Take her and this boy away." Armagang and a few hunters rushed into the treehouse. Charlotte said, "We will leave. Don't stretch out your hand or leg, unless you don't want your other hand anymore." Armagang did not expect Charlotte to dare threaten him at this time. But under Charlotte's calm but murderous stare, he did not have the courage to reach out and capture Charlotte or Polisai. The hunters pulled Polisai's hand and walked out. Uriah and Armagang, who were blocking the door, could not help but step aside, not daring to block their way. "Why? Why didn't you run away?" Polisai cried. Charlotte did not explain. If it were not for the spirit stone, he might have taken her and run away, because controlling these people was not a difficult task for him. But he had not gotten the spirit stone yet. How could he bear to run away? Do you regret it?" Polisai's tears flowed even more quickly. Charlotte smiled and reached out to wipe away the tears at the corner of her eyes. "No, I don't regret it either. I just regret that I did not meet you earlier." Her voice was very soft. Charlotte gently held her hand. "Let's go. We can talk later." Polisai's tears flowed again. "You don't know about the Parliament. We have no future." Chapter 14:12. In the ancient stone hall, Charlotte and Polisai stood on the circular floor. Around them were seats for counselors, rock tables, and rock chairs, forming a ring around them. This place was like the Colosseum of ancient Rome, and Xiaolei and Polisai were gladiators trapped in the Colosseum, ready to fight. There were dozens of counselors present, all of them wearing white robes. White was the symbol of purity and light, but from Charlotte's point of view, even if these counselors dyed their skin white, they were definitely not good people. The trial was very simple. Once Amar and the hunters stated the crime of Charlotte and Polisai's affair, the trial against Charlotte and Polisai began. Sitting in the chairman's seat, Chairman Lingmu said, "Charlotte, Polisai, with so many witnesses and evidence in front of you, what else do you have to say? They're talking nonsense." Polisai's eyes were filled with tears. "Mr. Xia only helped me heal my wounds. We didn't do anything." "Shut up," Uriah scolded. "Do you think we're idiots? I think we should cut off your tongue before we burn you." Polisai seemed like he wanted to say something, but he shut his mouth tightly. She knew this place, and she knew these people. Even if she explained 10,000 times, it would be useless. These people would not listen to her, much less believe her. Charlotte said, "All right, it seems like you think I'm guilty. But I have a suggestion. Didn't you run into some trouble? A blue titan cut off your path to the center of the forest of rest. I'm willing to kill it for you to make up for what you think I've done. What do you think? Kill Blue Titan? Who do you think you are?" Amar sneered. "You're too full of yourself." Charlotte shrugged. "Warrior Amar, if you think I'm not strong enough, you can come out and fight me. I'll prove my strength to you." Amar's face was blue with anger. But facing such a public challenge, he did not dare to accept it. Chairman Lingmu and the other counselors whispered to each other. Walaya's face darkened. Charlotte had long since captured the secret in his heart. Saray had asked him to report about killing Lantan, but he did not say anything. Uriah's choice was to cooperate with Armagang and get rid of him and Polisai in the fastest way possible. At this time, Speaker Lingmu and the other counselors were clearly tempted. They were discussing the feasibility of this matter. Of course, Uriah wasn't happy. Speaker Lingmu and the other counselors quickly ended their discussion. He said, "We don't believe you can kill that Blue Titan, and we can't break our traditions and rules that have lasted for thousands of years for you. You and Polisai will be executed by fire. The location is Sky Square, and the time is tomorrow." Polisai's legs gave way, and he slumped to the ground. A cold light flashed in Charlotte's eyes, but a cynical smile appeared on his face. "You don't believe me? Fine, send someone you think can defeat me. If your strongest warrior can't even beat me, how are you going to kill that Blue Titan? Think about it from another angle. I'm going to die anyway. Let me die in battle with the Blue Titan and give you the chance to kill that Blue Titan. Isn't that a better thing?" "Shut up." Walaya clearly did not want Charlotte to continue talking. Chairman Lingmu said, "Let us discuss it again." Uriah said, "Chairman Lingmu, this kid," Chairman Lingmu said, "don't say any more." At this time, Saray's voice came from the entrance. I agree with the suggestion. Not only had Saray come, even Bluewood's father and Longier had come. However, when Saray came in, Bluewood's father and Longier were stopped by the council's guards. The father and daughter's faces were full of anxiety and confusion. For the father and daughter's point of view, they obviously could not understand why Xia Lei would get involved with the widow Polisai. It was completely unreasonable and illogical. Sari strode into the stone hall. His voice was very loud. That Lon Tan has already threatened our mission. A new opportunity is coming. Before that, we must open up a path to the center of the Forest of Rest. This human kid can help us complete our mission. Please give him a chance to redeem himself. With that, he winked at Chairman Lingmu. This was a hint. Chairman Lingmu understood and nodded. Fine, we'll give him a chance to redeem himself. We'll also approve your operation later. However, this human kid will be temporarily in your custody. He can't be released until you start the operation. No problem. I'll send someone to watch him, Saray said. Charlotte said, Wait, I have a condition. Saray's gaze shifted to Charlotte, his eyes cold. You still dare to raise conditions? I've already saved your life. Don't go too far. Charlotte said, I obey the council's decision. I just want to ask you to lock Polisai up with me. When we set off, I want to bring her with me. I've gotten a chance to redeem myself, and she should also have a chance to redeem herself. I need a helper to kill that blue titan, and she'll be my helper. This isn't. Chairman Lingmu was about to refuse, but at that moment, he paused for a moment and changed his mind. This proposal isn't too much. I agree. Lock the human kid up with Polisai. Captain Saray, you can take him away. Since this is the council's decision, I'll carry it out. You two come with me. Saray left with Charlotte and Polisai. Chairman Lingmu shook his head slightly at this moment, a confused expression on his face. At the entrance of the stone hall, Longier suddenly rushed up and slapped Charlotte's face. She lost control of her emotions and said, You damn pervert. I regret being wrong about you. You cheated me of my feelings, you bastard. Charlotte grabbed her hand and tangled with her. Several council guards and Armagang, who was standing in the distance, all showed gloating sneers. But at this moment, Longier lowered her voice. What the hell is going on? Charlotte pressed his face against hers. Tonight's action. After saying this, he pushed her away. I don't love you at all. You're just a woman who loves money. We have nothing to do with each other from now on. Damn it. I'm going to kill you. Longier bared her fangs and brandished her claws, wanting to pounce on Charlotte to fight. Saray scolded. Enough. This is not a place for you to mess around. Longier's father pulled Longier away. Saray and several temple guards escorted Charlotte and Polisai out of the stone hall, through the sky square, and then to the temple at the top of the mountain. It had only been half a day since Charlotte left the temple at the top of the mountain. Now, he was back, but not as a visitor, but as a prisoner in the dungeon of the temple. Polisai was locked in the same cell as him, and she was still in a trance until the iron door of the cell was closed. Although I don't understand why Chancellor Lingmu agreed to lock you and Polisai together, I have to warn you, don't do anything blasphemous, or you will be severely punished, Saray said through the iron door. Charlotte smiled. Captain Saray, don't worry, we will stay here. If you need anything, just knock on the iron door and the guards in the corridor will come over. Leaving this sentence, Saray closed the iron door and left. Charlotte's gaze penetrated the iron door and looked at Saray's back. Saray stopped beside a guard and said, Watch carefully. If you hear any noises from inside, drag that woman out and burn her to death. The guard nodded. Understood, Captain. Saray left the corridor, and Charlotte withdrew his gaze. But before he could turn around, a warm body was already pressed against his back. Polisai's 2 MT Everest were pressed tightly against his back, squashing their shapes. Her hands also went around his waist and hugged him tightly. She was very forceful, as if she wanted to stuff his whole body into her body. Charlotte did not push her away, but just stood there quietly. She desperately needed a sense of security, and he gave her a sense of security. The two of them stood like this, and, after a long time, Polisai let go of Charlotte and went around to the front of him. She reached out and stroked the cheek that had been slapped by Longier and asked softly, "Does it hurt?" Charlotte smiled. "It doesn't hurt anymore." Policy burrowed into Charlotte's arms again. Charlotte gently stroked her hair. "Don't worry, and don't be afraid. I said I would take you out of here, and I will definitely take you out of here. Why didn't you show up earlier?" Policy choked with sobs. "If you had shown up earlier, I would have given you my most precious things." "Now, fool, don't talk about that. Go and rest," Charlotte said. "Okay." Policy responded meekly, then left Charlotte's arms and walked toward the pile of weeds in the corner of the cell. The pile of weeds was the bed of the cell. There was also a toilet in the cell. It was made of wood and had no cover. Apart from a pile of weeds and a toilet, there was nothing else in the cell. The walls were made of thick rocks, and some of the rocks were blue. Under the illumination of the oil lamp, they released a faint blue light, giving off the feeling of an ambient light. Charlotte's brain entered extraordinary mode and began to work at an incredible speed. Amar had just led a team to catch an adulterer, and this was a situation he did not expect. However, a turning point often appeared along with a crisis. He was now in deep trouble. It seemed like a bad situation, but in this bad situation, a turning point had appeared because this was the best opportunity to steal that piece of spirit ore. In his brain, all the maps he had seen about the temple on the top of the mountain, as well as the places he had walked, appeared in his brain and were drawn into a holographic map. In almost a second, his brain calculated a result based on all the information he had. The cell he and Policy were in was located on the right side of the central temple, and the straight-line distance from the ground was no more than 200 meters. After his brain gave this result, the simulation began again. There were all kinds of possibilities in his brain, and the steps and risk factors of each possibility appeared in his mind with incomparable clarity and accuracy. The simulated action carried out by his brain was even accurate to the point of how to take each step. However, a simulation was a simulation, and changes were inevitable in real actions. Therefore, this kind of simulation was only a hypothetical action. He just wanted to find the most suitable and most successful plan from it. A plan gradually emerged in his brain and slowly took shape. A rustling sound suddenly came from behind him. Shoo. Chapter 14:13. Charlotte knew very well what that voice was. The voice seemed to be pulling at him, trying to pull him over. He tried very hard to resist that impulse, but his brain was no longer in an extraordinary state. The holographic map of the temple had also been replaced by a blue and black striped ball, mature and plump. It swayed back and forth, swaying back and forth, with a demonic rhythm that could not be erased. "I can't help it," Policy's voice said. "I'm sorry," Charlotte said awkwardly. "What's there to be sorry about? It's fine. Do as you please." Shoo. Charlotte closed his eyes, a bitter smile on his face. It was awkward, but the place was only so big, and there was only one toilet bowl. There was no way to avoid the awkwardness. The embarrassing voice disappeared, and the sound of Policy's footsteps moving in her but pressing into the weeds could be heard. Charlotte's heart was slightly relieved, and he opened his eyes. The iron door in front of him was still there. His gaze pierced through it, and the guard in the corridor was wiping his sword. The blade reflected the light of the oil lamp, and it flashed coldly, cold and sharp. A smile appeared at the corner of Charlotte's lips. The temple guard would be the starting point of his operation. He was now waiting for that time to come. Ouch! Policy suddenly cried out in pain. Charlotte hurriedly turned around. One glance, and 1 second later, his whole body froze. It was as if he had been enchanted with sex and temptation. There was not a single thread on Widow Akimis's body. All her beauty was exposed in front of him. Streaks of blue and black dotted her skin, high up, flat, everywhere. They made her seem very mysterious, full of the temptation of a woman from another race. Policy looked straight at Charlotte. Her eyes were brave and shy. Her clothes were on the weeds, silent and as quiet as it. Charlotte was stunned for a long time before he came back to his senses. He smiled bitterly. "What are you doing? Put your clothes on." "What are you waiting for?" said Policy. Isn't that why you had them lock me up with you? I'm willing. Charlotte. He used the power of branding to forcibly implant a mental command in Speaker Lingmu's brain, making Speaker Lingmu agree to lock Polisai up with him. His purpose was just to prevent them from hurting her. If they were to lock her up separately, no matter if it was the guards of the parliament or the temple, none of them would let her go. But now it seemed that Polisai had obviously misunderstood his good intentions. You gave up everything for me. Shouldn't I give up everything for you? Polisai's voice was filled with gratitude and tenderness. Charlotte hurriedly said, I'm not. I'm just... Polisai suddenly walked up to Charlotte with tears in his eyes. We're going to die, and I don't want to leave any regrets before I die. Let me give you happiness. It's the only thing I can give you. If you don't want it, what reason do I have to live? These were the saddest words of love that Charlotte had ever heard, and his heart softened. Polisai took Charlotte's hand and led him into the weeds. He hesitated for a moment, but he did not refuse. His weakness had never changed. He was still not good at rejecting women. If he were good at it, he would not have so many wives and children in his home on earth. Polisai stopped in the weeds, turned around, and burrowed into Charlotte's arms. Her gentle embrace made him freeze for a moment, and he did not know what to do. His mind was a mess, and his thoughts and emotions were a mess. Are you worried about the mucous membranes of Ahimus women? Don't you have that with Langi? Charlotte nodded subconsciously. That's really the reason. Polisai's voice was very soft and soft. Don't worry, I won't hurt you. You shouldn't be afraid of it, because it will make you happy. I promise you. You can experience happiness that you can't experience from human women. Charlotte was inexplicably moved. Polisai grabbed one of Charlotte's hands, and her skin suddenly released that kind of mucous membrane. In the blink of an eye, the transparent mucous membrane wrapped around Charlotte's hand. A warm feeling spread from his palm, and it felt as if his palm was placed in a piece of heated jelly. It was very novel and very comfortable. If a handshake was so comfortable and enjoyable, then what? Charlotte's eyes became hot. It was a sign that the flames in his body were out of control, and it was very obvious. Polisai suddenly leaned forward and kissed Charlotte's lips. Charlotte's clothes also fell into the weeds. The human boy and the Ahimus woman were entangled together. No one was perfect. Being unable to reject women was Charlotte's weakness, and it was also his character flaw, so let it be a flaw. In his dangerous journey of fate, some female confidants appeared and wrote a few romantic and touching stories. What was wrong with that? Be gentler, it's my first time. Widow Ahimus was extremely shy. Huh? Charlotte felt like he had been electrocuted. I'm not lying to you, because you'll know soon enough. Gaia, my husband, when he was very young, he was bitten off by a horned boar during a hunting trip. I only found out after I married him, but I don't blame him. I'm a woman with a hard life. Tears welled up in Widow Ahimus's eyes. There were painful memories of the past, and there was also hope for the happiness in front of her. Charlotte suppressed it. Polisai was a woman with a hard life, there was no doubt about it. But the most tragic character was still her husband, Gaia. That unlucky man's life was written with the word bad. What he owed Polisai, what he could not give Polisai, Charlotte felt obliged to give it to Polisai on Gaia's behalf. At that moment, he felt like he was running and rolling on the soft grass full of flowers, flying on the white clouds, and every breath of air was filled with happiness. All the cells in his body flew out of his body and beyond the clouds, singing in the golden sunlight. Woman Ahimus was indeed not lying. That feeling was unprecedented, and at this time, even if a god was offered to him, he would not do it. Polisai could not control some of the sounds, and the guard in the corridor soon noticed something. He listened attentively, then threw away the oilcloth he used to wipe the blade of his sword and stood up. He strode towards the cell where Charlotte and Polisai were, cursing as he walked. Damn, what a bitch! How dare you blaspheme here? I'll strip you naked and burn you into a fireball. However, before he could get close to the iron door, an inexplicable voice suddenly appeared in his mind. After that, the angry expression on his face suddenly calmed down. He then turned around and sat back on the chair. He picked up the oilcloth he had thrown away and continued to wipe the blade of his sword, never looking at the iron door again. The human kid behind the iron door was immersed in the joy of being a god. How could he tolerate someone destroying it? Not to mention burning woman Ahemus, who had brought him unprecedented joy. No matter how happy the flight was, there would be a time when one would return to the ground. As the passion faded, Charlotte wanted to get up from the pile of weeds, but he staggered and fell back down. In that short amount of time, he had almost been emptied by the Archemus woman beside him. But he did not care at all. If he had to choose again, he would still do the same. "Take a break. You're tired," Polysai said. A smile appeared at the corner of Charlotte's mouth. "You're right. You Ahemus women are really special," Polysai said with a smile. "We Ahemus women are the symbol of chastity. No one can force us unless we want to. Those men who bullied me, do they think I don't know what they're thinking? But as long as I don't want to, none of them can touch me. The more stubborn I am, the more I don't give in, the more they hate me." Charlotte hugged her and said gently, "It's all over. The hard times won't come again. Believe me, after you leave here, you'll have a new life." Polysai rested her head on Charlotte's chest and said softly, "You don't have to comfort me. I know our fate very well. But even if I die, I have no regrets. I met you, and you're the best gift the god of sky gave me." Until now, she still did not believe that Charlotte could bring her out of here alive. However, Charlotte did not explain anything further. He had always been the kind of person who said less, but did more. He would not convince Polysai that he would bring her out of here alive. He just needed to do it. "My man, do you know, you're also special." Polysai did not seem to want to linger too long on the serious topic of life and death, so she changed the subject. "What are you referring to? What did you just do?" "Well, what I said is true. We Ahemus women are the most special women in this world. Even the men of Archimedes can't hold out for long. But you surprised me. I often hear some Ahemus women complain about their men, saying that their men are done in a few moves. But you're different. You're stronger than them. You're the strongest man." This was actually the kind of compliment that men liked the most, and Charlotte was no exception. He could not help but laugh, his body faintly feeling a little impulsive. But he restrained himself and climbed out of the weeds. "What are you doing? You should rest." Polysai climbed up as well. Charlotte looked straight at Polysai. "Are you willing to do anything for me?" "Of course." Polysai did not hesitate. "I'm willing to die for you." Charlotte said, "I don't want you to die. I just want you to do me a favor." Polysai glared at Charlotte. "I don't like it when you're being polite with me. What do you want me to do for you?" Charlotte hesitated for a moment before saying, "I want you to help me produce milk. I want to drink your milk." "Huh?" Polysai had a surprised look on her face. "Our bodies are a little different from your human women's, but milk production is the same. We also need to give birth to children to produce milk." "How can I do that?" "You just need to promise me. Leave the rest to me," Charlotte said. Polysai's heart was filled with curiosity and confusion. But how could she refuse Charlotte's request? She nodded without hesitation. "I promise you." Charlotte's eyes suddenly turned black. Polysai was completely quiet, and then he lay flat on his back. About 20 minutes later, she closed her eyes. She did not know what had happened to her body, but before she closed her eyes and fell asleep, she felt her chest heat up faintly and become more and more swollen. That feeling was very uncomfortable, as if her chest was filled with liquid and had to be squeezed out to feel comfortable. But she did not have time to feel that strange feeling for long before exhaustion hit her like a tide, and she passed out. What happened next? She did not know at all. "Oh my God, it's blue." Charlotte looked up from Polysai's chest with a surprised expression. A mouthful of Ahemus blue milk flowed down his throat, and the branding power swarmed over, and suddenly all the cells in his body seemed to be awakened. Charlotte was shocked again. The evolutionary energy contained in Ahemus blue milk was several times that of all the breeds of milk he had eaten before. Ahemus blue milk came from the natural pastures of the Forest of Rest, the best of the best. Chapter 14:14. After drinking to his heart's content, Charlotte helped Polysai put on some clothes. He then put on his clothes, laid down in the haystack, and close his eyes to rest. His body looked still, but the inside of his body was in an unprecedentedly active state. The branding power greedily absorbed the energy at the beginning of life contained in the asamis blue milk. That energy carried the brand of life given by the universe. And for the branding power, it was actually evolutionary energy. The asamis blue milk contained extremely rich evolutionary energy, and the big meal that his branding power had been longing for had finally appeared. How could it not be active? Along with the power of the brand, every cell in his body became active. His body had always been in the process of subtle evolution, and the rich evolutionary energy naturally brought about an opportunity for evolution. If the evolution of the body was compared to the stairs to heaven, then this time it was as if the asamis woman, Polisai, had pushed him from behind, causing him to take a few steps. The branding power was getting stronger, and his body was also evolving in a more perfect direction. The feeling of going from a mortal to a god was exceptionally strong. Even lying in the underground prison, he could hear the sound of the wind blowing on the ground, and even the sound of snowflakes falling to the ground. It was incredible, but at this time he had really done it. Was this the rhythm of controlling everything? Was this a sign that he was going to evolve to a new level? Charlotte could not help but think about it, and he could not suppress the excitement in his heart. However, as time went on, this extremely extraordinary effect slowly weakened and finally returned to normal. Charlotte thought to himself, Polisai's milk contains extremely rich evolutionary energy, but also has a drug-like attribute. Just now, I was clearly stronger than before, like a professional athlete taking a stimulant. Was that the effect of the drug taking effect? All medicine was 30% poisonous. Was the asamis blue milk poisonous milk? That was really possible. However, until now, he had not felt any discomfort, let alone any obvious toxic side effects. Let's try again. If there are no side effects, then it'll be perfect. I can prepare some milk according to its attribute that suddenly makes me stronger, carry it with me at all times, and drink a little when I need strength the most. After drinking Boris's milk, my abilities will increase dramatically for a period of time, and this sudden increase in strength will be enough to help me solve many problems. With this in mind, Charlotte couldn't help but climb up from the weeds again. He then moved closer to Boris's chest and opened his mouth at Mount Everest. Boris still had no reaction. She just lay there quietly. She did not know that she was feeding a human superhuman and how happily and greedily that guy ate. After an unknown amount of time, Charlotte raised his head from between the two empty Everest. He burped and then laid down in the weeds to observe the internal condition of his body. The new transcendent state soon arrived, just as his branding power absorbed a large amount of evolutionary energy. The sound of the wind above the dungeon and the snowflakes piling up on the ground entered his ears again, very clearly. This time, the sensations were no longer novel, and his attention quickly shifted to his brain. His brain almost instantly recalculated the steps he had deduced before. And not only did it calculate, his brain even found several mistakes and corrected them. A perfect plan gradually took shape in Charlotte's brain. For a while, his ears caught the sound of someone talking. Damn, I really don't know what the leader is thinking. He actually locked that bitch and that human boy in the same cell. I bet that bitch is letting that human boy do it with her legs open. Boris, that bitch, if she promised to sleep with me, I would protect her and she wouldn't be in trouble today. She really doesn't know what's good for her. If that bitch gives her body to that human boy, I swear I will burn her alive. I don't think the human boy is so bold, is he? Blasphemy in our holy land? Unless he is tired of living. Let's go and see. Leader Saray is worried that there will be another accident, so he has decided to leave early tomorrow morning. So tonight, nothing can happen to that boy. This was the conversation between the two temple guards. Their footsteps came from the stairs into the dungeon. Charlotte finished his argument, then climbed up from the weeds and walked to the door. Although he did not have the multifunction watch that he liked to use on Earth, his body was a very accurate biological clock. The organs of the body would have different activities at different times. For example, between 11 p.m. and 1 a.m. was the time for the human liver to detoxify, and at this moment, his liver was doing this. So, he did not need to look at his watch to know that it was the period before 1 a.m. Of course, this was only his judgment based on his habits on Earth. The alchemists in the Forest of Rest did not have any concept of time. However, during this period of time, the temple guards were almost all asleep, and it was time for him to take action. You are leaving early tomorrow morning? Sir is really anxious. Looks like I have to make my move tonight no matter what. Charlotte stopped in front of the iron door. His gaze penetrated through it, and he had a complete grasp of the situation in the corridor. The two guards entered the corridor, but the guard in charge of the cell was still wiping his sword with an oilcloth. He did not know how long he had been wiping, but there was only one thought in his mind, and that was, I have to wipe the sword, I have to wipe the sword. The two guards walked over, and before they could say a word, they fell to the ground. The guard who was wiping the sword stood up, came to the iron door, and took out a key to open the cell. Then he began to take off his leather armor, and finally handed it to Charlotte together with his shiny sword. Charlotte put on the guard's leather armor, took the guard's sword, and walked straight out of the dungeon stairs. Today, there was a big iron door at the top of the stairs, and there were two guards with spears and shields, and they were also equipped with energy pistols. However, before Xia Lei could get close to them, their thoughts came to a halt like a stopped clock. Polysize Healer is really amazing. My current condition is at least twice as good as before. Walking out of the big iron door, Charlotte's heart was filled with excitement, and he was also full of confidence. He did not stop. He did not even look at the guards standing on both sides of the door, and he walked straight in the direction of the central temple. Although he was walking, the frequency of his footsteps was extremely fast. His footsteps even left faint afterimages in the air, faster than running. Alchemis's blue healer would probably become Charlotte's designated healer in the future when he was exploring and fighting. When he was about to reach the central temple, Charlotte suddenly stopped, and his gaze shifted to the corner of a side temple. Just as he shifted his gaze over, a stone manhole cover under the corner of the wall moved slightly. His eyes moved slightly, and he instantly saw through the thick manhole cover, and he saw the situation in the well. Two rats were climbing up. One of the rats was Bluewood's father, and the other was Longier. Both Bluewood's father and Longi were carrying an equipment bag. Bluewood's father's equipment bag contained the Blue Moon People's explosive devices, ropes, and other tools. He was also wearing a pair of Blue Moon People's combat boots. Longi was carrying his equipment bag. His bow and arrows, as well as his firearms and weapons, were all inside the bag. Longi was also wearing a pair of Blue Moon People's combat boots, as well as a brand new set of Taisha leather armor. For the sake of that spirit, the father and daughter seemed to be going all out. Daughter, are you sure that the kid is talking about tonight's operation? Bluewood's father, who was climbing up below Longier, looked very nervous. Yes, I've already told you 8 times. It's tonight. Longier looked a little impatient. I heard that Saray will leave the tribe with Charlotte and Polysi tomorrow morning to hunt that blue titan. This is our last chance. I hope it's not our last chance. Do you want there to be a next time? We've been waiting here for 15 years. How many chances have we gotten in these 15 years? Not even once. We don't dare to go near that place at all, but he's different. He can go in. I know the secret on him very well. He's our hope, so we have to save him and let him steal that spirit for us. All right, if I die, I'll take care of your inheritance. Don't worry. I'm your father. A bright light suddenly shone down from above, accompanied by a cold wind with snowflakes. Longier and Bluewood's father, who were under the manhole cover, were almost scared to death. The father and daughter looked up in panic, and then they were both stunned. The person standing next to the manhole was none other than Charlotte, whom they had planned to rescue. Charlotte said lightly, "You're late." "You? How did you get out?" Longi came back to her senses this time. Charlotte said, "I naturally have a way. Give me what I want you to prepare." Bluewood's father opened his equipment bag, took out a wooden box from it, and then handed it to Longi. Longi, who took the wooden box and handed it to Charlotte. However, just as Charlotte was about to take the wooden box, she suddenly retracted her hand. "You're not lying to us, are you?" Charlotte frowned. "Do you have any other choice? Don't waste time. Give it to me. If you're lying to me, I'll fight you to the death," Longi said fiercely. She handed the wooden box to Charlotte. Charlotte opened the wooden box, and a faint blue brilliance immediately emitted from it. There was a spirit in the box. He did not touch it, but he could already feel the energy it contained. "Are you sure it's exactly the same as the spirit in the temple?" Charlotte asked as he closed the wooden box. "It's exactly the same," Bluewood's father said. "Trust me, I'm not wrong." Charlotte put away the box. "Leave here for now. Wait for me on the way to where Serene is taking me. I'll give you that spirit Wait. Longi stared at Charlotte. "We agreed to move together. Why are you letting us leave? Son-in-law, do you want to take it for yourself?" Bluewood's father's voice sounded. Charlotte said, "If you want to die, then follow me. I don't need to remind you how dangerous this place is." He turned and left. "What about Policy?" Longi asked in a low voice. Her voice was full of tension and anxiety. Charlotte looked back at her. "I'll take her away from here. Let's meet outside." "Okay, I'll trust you one more time." Longi reached out and grabbed the manhole cover. Charlotte walked towards the central hall. Before he arrived, the energy field of the branding power had already enveloped him like a transparent mist. Chapter 14:15. There was a fully armed temple guard every few meters around the central temple, and the stone used to build the temple was the same as the statue of the faceless warrior, which had a certain impact on the energy of his branding power. He had already verified this yesterday. He used his jade eyes to see nothing in the central temple, but he fell into a strange illusion. Moreover, he didn't know the situation inside the central temple. These were the obstacles to him stealing the spirit and the reason why he didn't dare to approach the central temple rashly. There was only one chance, and if he failed, there would be no more. The energy field of the branding power spread very slowly, cautiously approaching the temple. The first step of Charlotte's plan was to control the guards around the central temple one by one, making their thoughts stop like a stopped clock. However, there was a problem in the first step. His energy field of the branding power quietly approached the central temple, but when it was about to approach a guard, the central temple seemed to become a magnet and began to absorb the energy of his branding power. Some illusions immediately appeared in his mind. He seemed to have returned to Peace Village, taking a walk in that poor and backward village. Faces flashed across his mind like a slideshow. Lian Ai, Lin Qing, Hunyo. He shook his head vigorously, interrupting the release of the branding power in time, and then walked out of the illusion. This time, he broke out in a cold sweat and cursed in his heart. "What's going on with this central temple? The stronger the energy of my branding power, the stronger the counterattack. If I can't control those guards, how can I steal the spirit?" Lanmu's father and Lan Jier were such smart people, but they didn't wait for a chance to make a move for 15 years. How could the spirit in the central temple be easily stolen? However, Charlotte didn't think about it, and his brain directly activated the backup plan. Charlotte waved his hand and threw the sword in his hand under a corner. Ding! When the sword fell to the ground, it made a crisp sound, and there was a little spark. The sound immediately alerted the temple guards. "Who is it?" a temple guard asked aloud. No one responded. "I'll go take a look," a temple guard said as he left his post. In a dark corner, Charlotte sneered. When he threw the sword, his branding power energy field also followed it. It was a trap that the temple guards could not see. The temple guard who had left his post to check saw the sword on the ground. In that instant, he seemed very surprised and suddenly became alert. But in that instant, before he could react, he completely calmed down. Then, he turned around and said, "Oh my God, come and see." "What's going on?" someone asked. The temple guard suddenly knelt down. "A miracle. The miracle of the god of the sky. Come and take a look." A few temple guards walked over. They were in the same situation as the first guard who came to check on the situation. When they saw the fallen sword, they knelt down and worshipped it. More temple guards came over. They and the previous temple guards knelt on the ground and worshipped the sword. What they saw was actually just a sword. There was no statue of the god of the sky. They worshipped the sword because there was an inviolable will in their minds. They had to kneel down and worship it. Just as a large group of temple guards knelt down and worshipped the sword, Charlotte walked out of a dark corner and strode toward the gate of the central temple. He did not dare to waste any time. He had to leave as soon as possible. He did not dare to rashly let the temple guards who had been deeply hypnotized return to their posts. He was not sure if the central temple would destroy the spiritual command he had implanted in the minds of the temple guards. And once a temple guard on duty came over, or a patrolling temple guard came over, his operation would fail. Time, every second was precious. G.A., G.A., J. The door of the central divine hall slowly opened under Xia Lei's hands. He finally saw what was inside the central divine hall, but he was completely stunned by what he saw. Xia Lei's eyes lit up. In front of him was not a spacious inner space of the temple, but a wall. The wall was 3 meters high and made of blue ore. It was curved and formed the shape of a whirlpool inside the central temple. Among all the blueprints given by Lan Mu's father and Lan Zhi, there was no blueprint of the inside of the central temple. He did not know that there was a whirlpool maze made of blue ore in the central temple. Although he did not dare to test it, Charlotte knew that the source of the branding power that was sucking him like a magnet was this whirlpool maze. Its existence caused a trace of hesitation and worry in his heart. A faint blue light was released from the center of the whirlpool maze. Then, it was refracted by the blue ore that made up the whirlpool maze. The entire central temple was a faint blue. A wave of energy flowed in the air, as if it carried an ancient secret, waiting for people to decipher it. Damn, it's just a stone maze. Can it be more dangerous than Sky City? Charlotte quickly made a decision. He walked into the central temple and closed the door. Once the door of the central temple was closed, all sound was isolated. It was extremely quiet. Charlotte stepped into the whirlpool maze. A mountain-like pressure suddenly pressed down on him. His legs suddenly bent down, and he almost knelt on the ground. Sure enough, there's a problem. Charlotte urged the branding power to resist. The pressure on his body was still there, but his legs slowly stood up. Fortunately, this was the forest of rest. The blue moon in the sky could not restrict the branding power. The energy field of the central divine hall could only affect the energy field of the brand power he released, but could not restrict him from using the brand power in his body. Otherwise, if the mountain-like pressure came crashing down, his internal organs would be crushed. After restraining the gravity, Charlotte walked step by step towards the center. Every step seemed very difficult, but he could still persist. The special medicinal effect of Akimis's blue milk had also become an important factor for him to persist. If not for the blessing of policized blue milk, he was afraid that he would have to bleed to finish this short journey. Round after round, after 4 rounds, Charlotte came to the center of the whirlpool maze. It was actually not a maze, because there were no complicated routes. It was just a circular passage. But even if it was such a short passage, if it were Lan Zhi and Lan Mu's father, the father and daughter would probably lie on the ground and wait for death after taking the first step. The spirit ore finally came into Charlotte's sight. It was quietly suspended on a blue rock. Charlotte slowly approached it. He no longer hesitated. After getting close, he stretched out his hand and grabbed it. Boom! When he grabbed the spirit ore in his hand, his brain suddenly shook violently, as if someone had smashed his head with a hammer. No blood gushed out, but he almost fainted. It was still the protection of the power of the brand. Without the protection of the brand, he did not know how serious the consequences would be. After the violent shaking, everything returned to normal. The pressure on his body did not decrease, but Charlotte did not obtain any information. He was confused and thought to himself, what's going on? Didn't they say that it stored information about the Akimis Empire's stone-searching plan? And the secret of the Forest of Rest? Why is there nothing? Does it need some medium to interpret it? Like a USB flash drive needs a computer? In an instant, many questions emerged in Charlotte's mind. At this moment, the universe brand hidden in the depths of his soul suddenly awakened and quickly revealed itself. It felt like the scorching sun hidden behind the dark clouds. The wind blew away the dark clouds, and the scorching sun appeared, shining brightly in an instant. The spirit, or in his hand, trembled slightly. Was this a resonance reaction? Everything happened too quickly. Before Charlotte could think, a large amount of information surged into his brain. The information was like a mountain torrent from a mountain stream, carrying with it a destructive power. But this power was safe for him, because the universe imprint that had suddenly appeared was like a boundless ocean that accepted the violent mountain torrents. No matter how much strength it exerted or how much it destroyed, the universe imprint remained unmoved. If the spirit, or in his hand, was compared to a USB flash drive, then the universe brand that suddenly appeared was like a computer that could extract and interpret information. Images, voices, and faces appeared in Charlotte's brain. How many images? How many voices? How many faces? There were millions of images, millions of voices, and millions of faces in his brain. This spirit, or contained the development and exploration of the Achemis Empire's prisoners and their descendants in this forest. Their home was created from nothing, and their footsteps were from the edge of the forest of rest to the center. After more than 3,000 years, the first prisoners to come to the forest of rest had long passed away, but their descendants were still exploring the forest of rest, searching for the fragment of the world box. The so-called stone hunting plan wasn't to find a particularly precious spirit but the fragment of the world box. That fragment, it was very likely to be in the forest of rest. This spirit, or not only contained the history of the Achemis Empire's exploration of the forest of rest, but also contained information about the holy thunder that came here 1,000 years ago. It also contained information about Canti and his companions who were chased by the Achemis Empire and died in the fourth ring of the forest of rest. This spirit, or contained information related to the Achemis tribe for more than 3,000 years. From this information, Charlotte found out that the spirit, or that Canti and his companions found, was not in the center of the forest of rest, but in the intersection of the fourth ring and third ring. According to the information stored in this spirit, there was a canyon to the east of the Achemis Empire, and there was a spirit, in that canyon. Coincidentally, the only way to the center of the forest of rest was through that canyon. The canyon was called the Corridor of Rest. After dawn, the armed forces of the Achemis Empire would take him and Polisai to that place to hunt Lontan. All the information stored in the spirit, was extracted, and it no longer transmitted any information to the universe imprint in the depths of his soul. It was completely silent. The universe imprint quickly faded and disappeared in the blink of an eye, like a stone sinking into the sea, and its existence could no longer be sensed. Charlotte didn't dare to stay for long. He put the spirit, that Lanmu's father prepared for him, on the blue rock. The fake spirit, was exactly the same as the one he had taken away. It quickly floated up from the blue rock without any flaws. Although Lanmu's father and Lanji couldn't get close, they had been hiding here for 15 years. Their plan and preparation were very good. Charlotte turned and left. The environment here didn't allow him to organize the information he obtained. Chapter 14:16. Everything returned to normal, and the temple guards returned to their respective posts. They had no idea what kind of miracle they had discovered. Even the guards in the dungeon did not recover from their clock-like halt until Charlotte entered the dungeon and locked himself up. For the temple guards, everything that had happened before was like a game where time had stopped. They had lost the most important part of their memory. Everything had to start from the beginning, the moment their brains started working again. "Hey, what's going on inside?" A temple guard who had come to patrol asked the guard who was cleaning his sword. The guard who was cleaning his sword said, "Nothing much. Everything is normal. Let's go take a look." Another patrolling temple guard walked over to the cell where Charlotte and Policy were held. The iron window on the cell's iron door was opened, and the two patrolling guards saw Policy, who was lying on a pile of weeds, and Charlotte, who was taking a nap in the corner. Although the two of them were locked up in the same cell, they were separated by a long distance, so they did not do anything blasphemous. The sound of the iron window opening woke Charlotte up. He opened his eyes and looked at the guard outside the iron window. "Behave yourself," the guard outside the iron window said fiercely. Charlotte spread out his hands with an innocent expression on his face. "Is there anyone more honest than me? Cut the crap and get your spirits up. We will set off tomorrow morning," the guard outside the iron window said. "We are here mainly to tell you this. Okay, I can go to the battlefield anytime and sacrifice myself for the tribe," Charlotte said excitedly. "Humph," the guard outside the iron window snorted coldly and closed the iron window. "Fool!" The smile on Charlotte's face disappeared. Who was the fool would be revealed when the time came. After the two patrolling guards left, Charlotte came to the weeds from the corner of the wall. He lifted Policy's clothes and moved his lips to the nearest Mount Everest. The operation just now had consumed a lot of energy, and he urgently needed to replenish it. Not only did Widow Asimus produce the highest quality blue milk, but because of the difference in body structure and physique, the amount of milk she produced was also considerable. He had already eaten it twice, but when he started eating this time, the fragrant and sweet blue milk still flowed continuously towards him. The purest energy circulated in his body. All of his fatigue disappeared, and all of his consumption was replenished. The feeling of turning from a mortal to a god returned, and it was still as intense as ever. Policy suddenly opened his eyes. Just as Xia Lei changed to another Mount Everest and began to eat, Policy suddenly opened his eyes. Seeing Charlotte in her arms and the liquid flowing out of her body gave her a fright. She opened her mouth wide and was stunned for a long time before she managed to say, "What's wrong? There's milk?" She knew very well what Charlotte had asked her to do before, which was to help her produce milk. Although she agreed, she didn't want to be scolded at all. She could help Charlotte. But when she woke up, she found that Charlotte was already drinking her milk. What could be stranger than this in this world? Burp. Charlotte burped, and a smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. "Don't be nervous. I'll just hypnotize your body and let your body enter the lactation period." Although this explanation was very simple, it had said everything that needed to be said. It was explained clearly and clearly. However, Policy didn't seem to hear what Charlotte said. She didn't know why, but she reached out and held a Mount Everest and squeezed it tentatively. Just like that, a blue drink was suddenly poured on Charlotte's face. Charlotte hurriedly grabbed Policy's hand. "Don't waste it. These are all good things." After saying that, he wiped his face with his hand and sucked his fingers with his mouth. At this moment, he was no longer a hero, nor was he a Superman. Instead, he was like a hungry, gluttonous brat. Policy's head was in a mess, and she could no longer organize her words. Charlotte said gently, "Don't worry. This is natural milk production, and it won't affect your body. If you don't want to, I can stop your body from producing milk." As soon as he said that, Charlotte regretted it. He was really worried that Policy wouldn't be willing. If that happened, where'd he get to drink this top-quality blue milk in the future? Policy finally came back to her senses. She looked at Charlotte with a strange look in her eyes, and her voice trembled. "My man, are you a god?" Charlotte smiled. "Do I look like a god to you? I'm just a man with a little special ability. You don't have to be afraid of me. I won't hurt you." "I'm not afraid of you, What are you trying to say?" Policy suddenly pushed Charlotte into the weeds, and her voice trembled even more. "You eat me, I want to eat you." "Charlotte, there was never a free lunch in the world. A cow that ate fodder had to plow the fields." In the dungeon corridor, the guard began to bury his head in cleaning his sword again. He rubbed and rubbed until a layer of the sword was almost rubbed off, but he just couldn't stop. When the wind and rain stopped and everything quieted down, Policy soon fell asleep. This time, Charlotte didn't hypnotize her, but she was exhausted. She had provided Charlotte with so much top-quality blue milk in succession, and her body had consumed a lot of energy. Coupled with her physical and mental satisfaction and incomparable joy, she naturally fell asleep after completely relaxing. Charlotte, however, was not in the mood to sleep. With the blessing of Akima's top-quality blue milk, his condition was surprisingly good. How could he waste time sleeping with a beauty? After Polisai fell asleep, Charlotte lifted one of her blue legs that was pressing on his body and gently put it down. Then, he put on his clothes and took out the spirit or that he stole from the central temple from his pocket. This time, it didn't cause the resonance of the universal imprint. The universal imprint hidden in the depths of his soul didn't appear, and the spirit or in his hand didn't transmit the stored information to him. However, this was different. His brain was doing the relevant work. When he was in the central temple, his brain had already received a huge amount of information stored in the spirit ores. At this time, he only needed to sort out to get the information he wanted. A series of images appeared in Xiaolei's mind. One by one, the prisoners were escorted by soldiers through a gate made of blue rocks. The gate was majestic and tall, and it released a mysterious energy. Even if it was just an image, one could feel the distortion of space. On the other side, far away in the forest of rest on the planet of hope, prisoners walked out of a cave in a canyon. Although they didn't see the same gate made of blue rocks, they could feel the distortion of space released from the cave. This was the way the Archimedes prisoners came to the forest of rest. The first generation of wasteland pioneers didn't use spaceships, but a spatial passage similar to a stargate. The Archimedes prisoners were looking for something in the canyon. The canyon was filled with black and blue ores. Some were huge, some were small, but without exception, they all contained rich spiritual energy. It was the center of the forest of rest. The Archimedes called it the Valley of Origin. The Valley of Origin was a very special name. It seemed to imply something, but there was no relevant information in the information he received. The Archimedes prisoners were attacked by a large number of wild beasts. Hordes of wild beasts formed a beast tide. Many Archimedes died in the Valley of Origin. The survivors escaped from the wild beasts and finally stopped at the edge of the forest of rest. They began to build camps and wait for reinforcements. Reinforcements didn't appear. They became a group of abandoned people. A huge human aircraft carrier flew over the Archimedes tribe, but it maintained a sufficient altitude. It seemed like it couldn't land in the Forest of Rest because the Forest of Rest had a mysterious and powerful energy field. A bird of prey flew down from the human aircraft carrier. There was a human sitting on its back. That person was dressed in red armor. He looked extraordinary. Unfortunately, because he was wearing a full helmet, he couldn't see his face. This person was Holy Thunder, the leader of the humans. That bird of prey was like 1,000 times the size of a bat. It wasn't a species from Earth. It looked very ferocious. It had sharp claws and teeth. Perhaps even a blue dragon wouldn't be a match for it. But it was this ferocious and terrifying bird of prey that became a human's mount. There must be some story between it and Holy Thunder. However, there was no relevant information in the information he received. Holy Thunder came to the Ahimus tribe and established an alliance with the former king of the Ahimus tribe, Wessex. The Archimedes king, Wessex, followed Holy Thunder and left the Forest of Rest. The late king of the Ahimus tribe never returned. After his death, the Ahimus tribe fell into chaos. The parliament rose, and the royal power ceased to exist. In order to divert the conflict between the Archimedes and Holy Thunder, the parliament kept exaggerating the conflict between the Archimedes and Holy Thunder, making everyone hate Holy Thunder. The camp of the Archimedes prisoners kept expanding and finally formed a tribe. Years passed, but the Archimedes Empire's reinforcements still hadn't arrived. They couldn't enter the Valley of Origins anymore, but they didn't give up on their mission. The surviving Ahimus prisoners continued to build their tribe, and the population grew larger and larger. Their footsteps once again extended toward the Valley of Origins. Failure after failure did not make them retreat. On the contrary, it made their faith stronger. The Blue Moon people invaded and destroyed human civilization. The Forest of Rest also ushered in a huge change. The Archimedes finally had a chance to step into the Valley of Origins again. The original stone hunting plan continued, but they didn't find a fragment of the world box. They believed that there were clues hidden in the Valley of Origins. As long as they found the clues, they might be able to find a fragment. Charlotte's brain worked in an extraordinary state. He was also immersed in the sea of information. He desperately wanted to find information about the world box and Sky Castle from the information, but there was nothing. The sky gradually brightened. The sound of footsteps came from the corridor outside the prison cell. Xiale quickly put away the piece of spirit ore and woke Boris up. "Put on your clothes, we're going to set off." Policia climbed out of the weeds. As she put on her clothes, she asked pitifully, "You'll always take me with you, right? You won't abandon me, right?" Charlotte smiled and waved his hand, slapping her big blue and black striped ball. "You're so good. How can I bear to leave you? I'm still counting on you to breastfeed me." "You're so bad." Policia rolled her eyes at Charlotte. Her eyes looked like she wanted to swallow Charlotte and hide him. The footsteps were getting closer. A new journey was about to begin. Chapter 14:17. A week later. Crackle. A bolt of lightning struck down from the dark sky, and a towering tree suddenly turned into a fireball. However, before the fire could burn completely, bean-sized raindrops poured down from the sky and extinguished the fire in an instant. The sudden rainstorm stopped the team, and the tribal warriors and temple guards set up camp on a hillside. Some logisticians started a fire and cooked in the tents that had been set up. The whole camp was a busy scene. For this expedition, Captain Saray had 100 temple guards, 200 tribal warriors, and 300 tribal warriors. Including the logisticians, there were about 650 people. Although Captain Saray did not say it. Charlotte also knew that the purpose of the Ahimis tribe this time was not just to hunt down the Blue Titan. There was another purpose, and that was to enter the Source Canyon to continue their mission, the stone hunting plan. Although Charlotte and Boris were also included in the team of 650 people, he and Boris did not have a tent that could shelter them from the rain. The first few days were sunny, and he and Boris could find a place to make do for the night, but it was impossible to make do with the rain. A cold wind blew, bringing with it cold raindrops. Boris shivered in the cold wind. Several temple guards standing next to her who were monitoring her, and Charlotte looked on coldly, with gloating sneers on their faces. Charlotte said, "Can you give me a tent? With such a heavy rain, my woman will get sick from the cold." "Oomph." A temple guard sneered and said, "Your woman? How affectionate. Isn't your woman Langia? I forgot that you are the great lover of humans. All Ahimis women should fall in love with you, right? Damn, who do you think you are? You better be smart and don't provoke us, or you will regret it." A temple guard said fiercely, "Ray, forget it, I don't want a tent." "I'm not cold," Boris said. A temple guard had a smirk on his face. He nudged Boris's waist with his arm. "Go sleep in my tent. Not only will you not get wet from the rain, but you will also have a warm quilt. You will be very comfortable sleeping in my quilt." "Ha ha." The temple guards all laughed. Charlotte's eyes were cold to the extreme. He walked toward the temple guard who nudged Boris's waist with his arm. "No." Boris suddenly jumped into Charlotte's arms and hugged Charlotte's waist tightly with both hands, not letting him go. But even with Boris stopping him, the temple guard who attacked subconsciously took a step back, his face showing fear. But he quickly recovered. He pulled out the energy pistol at his waist, pointed it at Charlotte, and shouted, "Damn, if you dare come over, I will kill you." Several temple guards also pulled out their energy pistols. All of them looked very fierce, giving people the feeling that they would shoot at any time. The atmosphere suddenly became tense. Several temple guards were afraid of Charlotte. That was because Charlotte could beat the tribal warrior, Armagang, to play with. Charlotte also broke Captain Saray's Tai Fiend King bow, which had terrifying power. But after all, he was a prisoner waiting to die. In their eyes, Xia Lei was like a beast locked in a cage. He couldn't do anything to them at all. So after their momentum was suppressed for a while, they burned again in the blink of an eye, and continued to be arrogant. Charlotte did not move. He just sneered. Well, seeing that my woman pleaded for you, I will not argue with you for the time being. But I have remembered your faces. Don't worry, I will have a good chat with you soon. Have a chat with us? Damn, are you threatening us? A temple guard said angrily. Charlotte said coldly, so what if I'm threatening you? Beat him up, a temple guard urged. A few of the temple guards were ready to make a move. What are you guys doing? Serene walked over with a group of temple guards. Armagang and Uriah were actually among them. The two walked at the back of the group, looking coldly at Charlotte and Polisai, who was in Charlotte's arms and using his body to block Charlotte. Actually, seeing the most beautiful widow of the Ahemish tribe protecting Charlotte like this, the men of the Ahemish tribe felt uncomfortable. As soon as Serene appeared, the temple guards immediately retracted their weapons. They put away their energy pistols and moved out of the way. Serene walked in front of Charlotte. This rain will not last for long. Tomorrow morning, we will move into the corridor of rest. We are now very close to the entrance of the corridor of rest. I came to warn you that Lontan might appear. Do you know what you should do? Charlotte said, Of course I know. I came here to kill it. But you have to give me a weapon, right? You don't want me to kill that Lontan with my bare hands, do you? Serene waved his hand, and a temple guard took a bone bow from his shoulder and handed it to Charlotte along with a quiver with 4 arrows. Charlotte reached out to take the bone bow and quiver, but he quickly realized that it was just an ordinary Taisha bone bow. It was not even as good as the one he made himself. The arrows were also made of Taisha bone, so they were light and could not be compared to his metal arrows at all. With such a bow, it was enough to kill Taisha, but it would be a problem to deal with blue dragons, let alone Lontan, who was ranked above blue dragons. Serene's face turned cold. What? You don't like my bow? Although this bow can't compare to the Taisha King bow you broke, it's not bad either. Charlotte smiled faintly. Good bow, thank you. Serene said. Also, don't try to escape. Once you escape, Polisai will be buried with you. Charlotte said, Why would I escape? I've already made it very clear that I'm here to kill that Lontan. I hope you can do what you say and take Polisai away, Serene said. Armagang walked up, and behind him were 2 hunters from the hunting team. The 2 hunters were also the ones who testified against Charlotte and Polisai in the council's rock hall a week ago. Polisai showed a look of fear. I'm not leaving. I'm not going anywhere. Serene said sternly, That's not up to you. Take him away. Charlotte pulled Polisai behind him and suppressed the anger in his heart. Captain Serene, there's no need to do this, right? Serene didn't give him any face at all. Armagang, what are you waiting for? Take Polisai away. You and your men will take care of him personally. Yes, Captain Serene. Armagang sneered and circled behind Charlotte. I'm not going anywhere. Polisai hid behind Charlotte, tears streaming down his face along with the rain. Don't make me do it, Armagang warned, then carefully reached out to Polisai with his hand. Charlotte glanced at Armagang, and Armagang subconsciously withdrew his hand. Charlotte's gaze swept around. Many of the Achemis warriors and temple guards were looking over, and many of them were laughing. It was also at this moment that Charlotte made a decision. He patted Polisai on the shoulder. Go with them. Trust me, we'll meet again soon. Polisai didn't want to leave Charlotte, especially in such an environment. Charlotte said, No one can hurt you. If someone does, I'll take their life. Polisai nodded. Be careful, I'll wait for you. Armagang grabbed Polisai's arm and pulled her out from behind Charlotte. You can say such disgusting words later. Come with me. Polisai followed Armagang and the 2 hunters away. Uriah gave Charlotte a deep look, then turned and left. You know very well why I imprisoned Polisai alone. You'd better kill that blue titan, or you and Polisai will both die, Serene said to Charlotte. Charlotte said, If that's the case, then I'll start tonight. This place is already close to the entrance of the Valley of Rest anyway. I want to kill it tonight and get my woman back. All right, it's decided. Serene's face showed a hint of a cold smile. Charlotte didn't stop. He turned around and left. His speed was very fast, and he disappeared into the forest in the blink of an eye. Captain, can that guy kill Blue Titan? A temple guard asked. If he really has that kind of ability, then it'll save us a lot of trouble. Saray sneered. If he doesn't, with his strength, it'll take a lot of effort for that blue titan to kill him. We'll just wait for him and that blue titan to fight until both of them are injured. Then one of us will appear and kill him and that blue titan. Captain, your plan is really brilliant. That kid probably won't even know that you've already sentenced him to death, even in death. Haha. A human kid actually dared to seduce the women of our Akima's tribe. He deserves to die. Some people flattered, some cursed Charlotte, but no one knew that there was a pair of eyes watching them from a dark corner 100 meters away. The owner of those eyes was Charlotte. Kill Blue Titan? Xiaolei had never thought of doing that, not even when he was in the Temple of Sky of the Archimedes tribe. He only had one goal in leaving the camp, and that was to kill. Crackle. A bolt of lightning struck down from the cloudy sky, but it was still unable to illuminate the environment in the forest. The treetops were too dense. Charlotte's vision was not affected in the slightest, and he quickly found Polisai in the camp. When he saw Polisai, Amagang happened to push Polisai, and Polisai slipped and fell to the ground. Amagang and the two hunters laughed loudly, looking very happy. Uriah walked over and said something to Amagang. Charlotte's eyes locked onto their lips, and he used lip-reading magic to read their conversation. "Take her to my tent," Uriah said. "Representative, what do you want?" Amagang asked tentatively. "Don't ask so much. Just take her there," Uriah said. "Understand, huh?" Armagang smiled perversely. "I've long heard that the councilman has concocted a drug that can make the most chaste Ahemus woman open her legs obediently. I can bring her over, but can I wait until you're done playing with her?" Uriah laughed. "Of course, no problem." Polisai struggled to get up and tried to escape, but the two hunters had already grabbed her arms and easily subdued her. Uriah and Amagang walked to a tent next to the camp, and the two hunters followed behind them with Polisai in their arms. Polisai cried and struggled, but there was nothing she could do. Xiaolei moved. Like a ghost, he circled around the direction of the tent. Everyone had a demon in their heart, and Amagang and Uriah had clearly awakened the demon in Charlotte's heart. Chapter 14:18. Polisai was pushed to the ground. She cried and screamed, but no one rushed in to stop the violence that was about to happen. She was facing 4 ferocious Ahemus men. She had no hope of escaping at all. She was in despair. "Damn it, you can F***CK that human brat, but you can't F***CK us? Bitch." Amar cursed. Walaya took out a bottle from a box. The bottle was half filled with a red liquid. It looked sticky and dirty. "Counselor Walaya, is that a drug for women?" Amar asked curiously. "This is something I spent 2 years researching. After drinking it, even the most chaste Ahemus woman will become a slut that anyone can F***CK, Uriah laughed. "Ha ha ha, that's fun." Amar laughed. He then ordered his 2 subordinates. "Why are you still standing there? Hurry up and hold this bitch down so that the counselor can give her the drug." The 2 hunters then walked towards Polisai. "Get lost." Polisai crawled to the corner of the tent, crying as she crawled. Why are you doing this to me? What did I do wrong? What did you do wrong?" Walaya laughed coldly. "Your fault is that you're too beautiful, and you have the biggest breasts in the Ahemus tribe. Ha ha, I want F***CK you as a man. I've already hinted to you many times to follow me, and I'll protect you. But you ignored me. Do you regret it now? Damn it, you'd rather F***CK a human brat than F***CK me. You bitch. I don't regret it. I won't regret it even if I die. I like him. He's stronger than all of you." Polisai roared at Walaya. A hunter suddenly stepped on her ankle, and she could no longer crawl. Another hunter stepped on her wrist and secretly used a bit of strength to torture her. The pain did not make her surrender. She gritted her teeth and did not cry out. Walaya walked towards Polisai with a perverted smile. "You'll know how powerful I am in a moment." Amidst the eerie laughter, an arrow made of bones suddenly tore through the canvas of the tent and pierced into the back of the hunter who was stepping on Polisai's wrist. The arrow pierced through his back, and exited through his chest. Then, it flew straight towards the hunter standing opposite him, who was stepping on Polisai's ankle, and instantly pierced the other hunter's heart. Two birds with one stone. Blue blood splattered in the tent. The hunter who was the first to be shot had a hole the size of an egg on his back and chest. The flesh and bones in front of the arrow were all crushed by the terrifying energy of the arrow. Although the other hunter's chest did not have the same hole, the bone arrow still pierced through his heart and back, killing him in one shot. The corpses of the two hunters fell to the ground. It was only then that Ammar regained his senses and roared, "Enemy attack!" Uriah turned and ran towards the tent flap. Suddenly, a foot kicked out from behind the curtain, sending Uriah, who had just run to the side of the curtain, flying. Bang! Walea smashed the box heavily, and the box shattered into pieces. Magong roared again, "Men!" However, he realized that even though he used all his strength to shout, his voice was pitifully soft. It could not even be compared to the cry of a baby. A familiar face entered the tent. He smiled and said, "Scream. If someone hears you and comes to save you, I'll let you go." The person who spoke was Charlotte. He had killed 2 hunters from the Akima's tribe with one arrow, but he looked so calm. Killing people was nothing to him. It was like eating or drinking. Ammar and Uriah were stunned, their faces filled with fear. Polisai was so emotional that he cried, "I knew it. I knew you wouldn't abandon me." Sob, sob. Charlotte smiled at Polisai. His voice was very gentle. "What I'm going to do next is very bloody. Do you want to watch? If you don't, you can wait for me outside the tent." Polisai hesitated for a moment, then suddenly said firmly, "No, I want to watch. I want to watch you kill these 2 bastards." Xia Leiwei nodded slightly. "Then you stay here and watch. After I kill these 2 guys, I'll take you away from here." "Go to hell!" Ammar roared angrily. He pulled out a short knife from his belt and swung it at Charlotte's neck. Charlotte pushed the bone bow in his hand forward, and the white back of the bow blocked Ammar's knife. When the knife and the bone collided, sparks flew everywhere. The moment Ammar's attack was blocked, an arrow shot out from Charlotte's left hand and stabbed into Ammar's abdomen. Blue blood spurted out from Ammar's abdomen. This was not a fatal wound. The blood and pain stimulated him, and he was like an injured beast. He roared, and the knife in his hand evaded Charlotte's bow and slashed at Charlotte's neck. However, in the next second, the Tai Fiend bow in Xia Lei's hand blocked his dagger, blocking it without any deviation. Then, the arrow in Charlotte's left hand stabbed in between Ammar's legs at lightning speed. "Ah!" Ammar screamed and quickly retreated while covering the area between his legs. As he retreated, Charlotte chased after him, and the arrow in his hand stabbed out like lightning. Ammar wanted to dodge, but he could not because Charlotte's speed was always faster than him. Crack, crack, crack. Every time Charlotte's left hand moved, a bloody hole would appear on Ammar's abdomen, chest, and thigh. Ammar had just retreated from the entrance of the tent to the bottom of the tent, about 3 meters away, when Charlotte stabbed him more than 10 times. Blue blood oozed out from the big and small holes on his body, drenching him. He had nowhere to retreat, but even if there was a way for the plane to take off, he could not escape. He fell to the ground. "Be careful," Polisai suddenly shouted. "Go to hell." Uriah suddenly stood up and pointed his energy pistol at Charlotte's chest. While Xia Lei was stabbing Armagang, he had already found his energy pistol. Xia Lei did not even look at him. Instead, he continued to crouch beside Armagang with the bleeding arrow in his hand. Uriah pulled the trigger without hesitation, but just as the trigger was about to ignite the energy bullet, he suddenly realized that his entire right arm was not listening to him. His right arm that was holding the gun slowly bent inward, and the muzzle of the energy pistol slowly moved toward his chest. What is going on? What did you do to me?" Uriah's eyes widened. He could not believe what was happening. Fear swept over him like a tidal wave, spreading through his entire body. Charlotte still did not look at Uriah. In his eyes, Uriah was already a dead man. Ammar spat out a mouthful of blood. He struggled to get away from Charlotte, but his body had no strength left. Charlotte pressed the arrow against Amar's throat. Are you afraid now? Don't kill me. I was wrong. Before he could finish, the arrow in Xia Lei's hand stabbed into his throat. It did not go in all at once. Instead, it went in slowly. Amar grabbed the shaft of the arrow, trying to stop it from going in, but his hand and the shaft were slippery with his blood. He could not hold on to it at all. He watched as the arrow slowly entered his throat. His breathing became more and more difficult. Finally, he could not breathe. Puffed. Charlotte pushed forward with his left hand, and the arrow pierced through Amar's neck. After piercing through, he yanked the arrow out. The barb on the arrowhead tore out a piece of flesh. Amar's head tilted to the side, and his limbs began to twitch less and less frequently. Charlotte stood up and walked toward Uriah. Uriah's gun was already aimed at his chest. He used his left hand to push the energy pistol away, but his left hand was not as strong as his right hand. When Uriah saw how Xia Lei had killed Amagang, and then saw Xia Lei walking towards him, he immediately broke out in a cold sweat. His fear reached its peak. Don't come over. Uriah's voice was trembling. I'm a counselor of the Chima's tribe. You can't kill me. Let me go. I can help you put in a good word so that the council won't pursue your crimes. You can live with Polisai in the tribe, okay? Okay. Charlotte laughed coldly. I won't go easy on you, even if I have to kill your Captain Saray or your Chancellor Lingmu. No. Do you know why I left him to kill you? Uriah shook his head. Charlotte looked at Polisai. Do you want to kill him with your own hands? That was the reason why Uriah was still alive. Me? Polisai walked toward Charlotte. She was hesitant and afraid. You're too kind and too weak, Charlotte said. Kill him and start a new life. Polisai looked at Uriah and then at the bottle of red liquid on the ground. She suddenly gained courage. She picked up the dagger that Alma had dropped on the ground and walked to Uriah's side. Don't kill me, Polisai. I was wrong. I'll never do anything to hurt you again. Don't kill me. Uriah's legs were bleeding yellow liquid. He was so scared that he peed his pants before Polisai could do anything. Polisai held the knife, but she did not dare to attack. Charlotte smiled. Cut his neck. Trust me, you can do it. This is the first difficulty you have to face. Be brave, and you'll be able to face more difficulties in the future. Polisai bit her lips and nodded. Then, she closed her eyes and slashed down with her sword. The blood gushing out scared Polisai. Her whole body was trembling. Cut with your eyes open, Charlotte said. You can do it. Polisai screamed and slashed down with his knife. She cut with her eyes open. It hit Uriah's neck. Uriah screamed again. He was on the verge of collapse. All that was left in his mind was the fear of death. Go to hell, Polisai roared. She kept waving her hand, cutting Uriah's neck again and again. Blood splattered on her face, and she looked very ferocious. This was a baptism of blood. Chapter 14:19. The rain continued to fall, showing no signs of stopping. Raindrops the size of beans dripped from the leaves, and the hillside was muddy. Boris had not gone very far before he slipped and fell on his butt in the mud. Charlotte helped her up. She was shivering, but it was not because of the cold wind and rain, but because she had just killed Uriah. Don't be afraid. It's all over now. Charlotte comforted her. Polish snuggled up to Charlotte. With you by my side, I'm not afraid. Where are we going? She had escaped, but she was confused. She did not know where to go, and she did not know what the future would be like. Charlotte said, waiting for someone. Waiting for someone? Polish raised her head from Charlotte's shoulder and looked at Charlotte curiously. Who? Charlotte said, someone you know. Someone I know. Polish looked confused. She could not guess who it was. At this moment, a woman's voice suddenly came from behind a giant tree. How shameless. If my father and I were not here, I'm afraid you would have done it. As soon as the voice fell, Lanji, and Lanmu's father walked out from behind the giant tree. Lanmu's father had a flattering smile on his face, but Lanji-er's face was full of disdain and displeasure. It was as if she had seen someone who owed her a lot of money and had not paid it back. Lanji-er, Polish subconsciously left Charlotte's arms. She looked nervously at Longier and Lonmu's father, who were walking towards them with a guilty look. Everyone in the Akimis tribe knew that Charlotte was Longier's fiancée, but now he was with her. How could she not be nervous and worried when facing Longier, who refused to be at a disadvantage, in front of the whole tribe? Charlotte seemed to see through Boris's mind. Just as Boris left his arms, he reached out and put his hand on her shoulder. He held her affectionately in his arms again and said, "Don't be afraid of her, and don't feel like you owe her anything." At that moment, Boris was so moved. She didn't know that Charlotte and Longy were actually acting from the beginning. They were not engaged at all, not even a couple. However, after hearing what Charlotte said, when she looked at Longier and Lonmu's father again, she was not so afraid, nor was she worried about anything. Longier walked over and snorted. "We're already here. Where's the thing?" "Of course it's on me, but I have a condition," Charlotte said. "Agree to my condition, and I'll give you what you want." "What other conditions do you have?" "This is too much." Longy suddenly lost control of her emotions. "Exactly," Lonmu's father said. "We agreed in advance. At that time, you didn't say you had any conditions." Charlotte said, "You didn't tell me that there was a gravitational field in the temple. If I wasn't smart enough, I would have died there. You've been lurking here for 15 years. It's impossible that you didn't know about the situation in the temple. Why didn't you tell me? It's not the first time you've schemed against me. What's wrong with me making a condition? You're not willing? If you're not willing, then forget it. You can leave." Longier wanted to explain, but she swallowed her words. It was easier said than done to deceive a person like Charlotte. Lonmu's father also felt embarrassed and guilty. Charlotte said lightly, "The thing is in my hands. If you want to take it back, you have to meet my conditions. This matter is non-negotiable." Longier bit her blue lips. "What conditions do you have?" Charlotte said, "My conditions are very simple. You have to take Policia out of the Forest of Rest. You have to guarantee her safety. Then, after I leave the Forest of Rest, you have to hand her over to me unharmed." Before Lonmu's father could speak, Policia rushed to say, "I'm not leaving. I want to be with you. I'm not going anywhere." Charlotte said, "I want to go through the corridor of rest. I also want to go to the Canyon of Origin. Every place is very dangerous. I can't guarantee your safety. You will die there." "No, I'm not afraid of death." Policia looked very stubborn. Xiaolei suddenly slapped his palm on her perky buttocks. With a crisp smack, Policye's perky buttocks suddenly rippled beautifully. Her face suddenly turned bluer because of embarrassment, but she didn't blame Charlotte at all. Charlotte said, "Why do I have to die? Isn't it good to live? You leave here first and wait for me to come back. Then I will take you to the underground city of the desolate border. I have a home there." He didn't know if it was the slap on the buttocks that worked, or if it was Xiaolei's words that worked, but Boris responded softly. This was actually not difficult to understand. If she followed Charlotte to the corridor of rest and the Canyon of Origin, she would become a burden to Charlotte and would most likely die there. If she was dead, how could they be together? If she temporarily left to a safe place and waited for Charlotte to come back, then they could be together in the future. So why not leave? "Dirty." Longier spat softly. Lonmu's father said, "Son-in-law, I can't agree to this condition, but you have to let me see that thing first." Xiaolei put his hand into his crotch and moved it around in his pants. Longier's face suddenly turned blue. "You actually hid our sacred object in that place. Son-in-law, you are too." Lonmu's father could not stand it anymore. Charlotte said, "I stole it from that temple and still have to play the role of a prisoner. If I don't hide it there, then where can I hide it?" When he pulled his hand out of his crotch, there was a small bag wrapped in black cloth. He opened the small bag, and a faint blue light suddenly emitted from his hand. In his hand was the spirit or that he had stolen from the central temple. "It's this, our sacred object." Longier couldn't wait to reach out and take it. Charlotte retracted his hand. Policy came back to her senses. She hurriedly lifted her clothes. Holding a bottle in one hand and a large blue in the other, she began to milk the bottle. Charlotte watched as the finest blue milk flowed into the bottle. He could not help but lick his lips. Policy burst out laughing. I really don't know why you like drinking milk so much. You're just like a child. Charlotte also laughed. Your milk can make me stronger. I don't believe it, Policy said. Then she added, if you are hungry, you can eat some yourself. I will just squeeze this one. It won't be a problem to fill up your 2 small bottles. Xiaolei didn't hesitate at all. He moved closer as well. Drip, 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 the sound of the rain and the sound of drinking milk mixed together. Coupled with the faint sounds of the Akimis woman, there was no atmosphere of parting. This atmosphere of parting, this scene of parting, was simply too chaotic. Did he like Policy? Or did he love Policy? Until now, he had not seriously thought about this question. But he knew that this unfortunate and pitiful woman had given her most precious chastity to him, and even gave him milk to drink. She was so good to him, so he had to be good to her as well. This was enough. He was much better than those men who often said things like, I like you and I love you, but when they encountered danger, they would turn and run. Policy filled the 2 bottles to the brim. Xiaolei was also full and even burped. My man, I will wait for you outside the forest of rest. You must come to see me, or else I will come in and find you, Policy said. Charlotte nodded. Wait for me. I will be back. Policy suddenly wrapped her arms around Charlotte's neck and kissed Charlotte's lips. Don't worry. You can do it once and then separate. Lan Ji's voice was heard. I can wait for you. Policy hurriedly let go of Charlotte. Charlotte touched the back of her head and then turned to leave. This was the scene of a proper parting. Chapter 14:20. The torrential rain was endless, and the low-lying areas had already gathered into a river. If this continued, there would probably be a flash flood in this place. There are footprints there. A temple guard excitedly ran towards the place where the footprints were found. A few temple guards followed, dripping in the rain. The footprints were on the water, not 1, but 2, extending in the direction of the corridor of rest. It's that human brat and that bitch. The temple guard who found the footprints said. They went into the corridor of rest. Go back and report to Captain Serene. The rest of you, follow me. Wait, a temple guard said. That brat's archery is superb. He killed 2 hunters in Representative Uriah's tent with 1 arrow. We'll just follow him. He did not continue, but everyone understood what he meant. Then we'll wait here and let Captain Serene bring his men over. The temple guard who found the footprints changed his mind. No one objected. Getting rid of Charlotte and Policy was a great merit, but no one was willing to exchange their lives for this merit. A temple guard turned to report and disappeared into the dense forest in the blink of an eye. That brat is indeed cunning. Captain Serene even sent people to chase after him, but who would have thought that he would take the risk and enter the Canyon of Rest? Luckily, we found out in time, and were able to call back the people who were chasing after him. Damn, if we knew that brat was so cunning, we would have shot him when he asked for the tent. Right, that was the best time to get rid of him. Captain Serene is really something. He actually believed that brat would kill that blue tank for us. I never believed that brat. If it was me, I would have killed him first, then tortured that bitch Policy to death. These temple guards were the ones who were guarding Charlotte and Policy in the camp. If Shiguang could start over, they would definitely shoot Charlotte without hesitation. With Policy left, they would use her to satisfy their perverted desire to torture women. But would Shiguang start over? No. Whoosh. Just as the temple guard were talking about Charlotte and Policy, a white arrow suddenly flew out from the depths of the darkness. The air was torn in front of the arrowhead, and raindrops evaporated in front of the arrowhead. This arrow was so fast that it was impossible to follow its trajectory with the naked eye. The sound of the wind and rain was its best cover. Screech. The temple guard who first discovered the footprints was pierced through the chest by an arrow. Even his Tai Sha beast leather armor couldn't stop the arrow from penetrating. The huge impact also lifted his body off the ground. He flew 2 meters and hit a tree trunk. However, he did not fall down. Instead, he was nailed to the tree trunk by the arrow. It's him. A temple guard shouted in horror, then raised his gun and aimed in the direction of the arrow. Screech! Without waiting for him to fire a shot, his body flew up from the ground and fell into the rainwater ditch after flying a distance in the air. The rain carried his body downwards. Rumble. An energy bullet exploded in the forest, and the light from the explosion could be seen from afar. Whoosh! Ah! The temple guard who fired the shot was also nailed to a tree. The remaining two turned around and ran. Whoosh whoosh! 2 ancient arrows flew over, and 2 more corpses appeared on the ground. The battle had ended so suddenly. Lanji rushed out from her hiding place and ran toward the corpses. What are you doing? Charlotte also appeared from his hiding place. Those guys are temple guards. They receive a lot of money every month. They also have energy pistols with them. They are very valuable. As she spoke, Lanji had already started searching the corpses. Charlotte smiled bitterly. He felt that he had asked in vain. He hung the Tai Sha bone bow that Sar had given him on a tree branch, along with the remaining 4 arrows in the quiver. He used his saber to carve a sentence on the tree branch in a Hemis language. Captain Sar, thank you for your bow and arrows. I used them to kill your men. If you want revenge, come to the corridor of rest to find me. My destination is the Canyon of Origin. If you can get there alive, we will meet. I will personally cut off your head. When Charlotte finished carving, Lanji had already finished searching the corpses and returned. She saw Charlotte's words on the tree branch and curled her lips. Boring. Are you afraid that he won't know where we are going? Sar is the captain of the Ahemis tribe's armed force. He has hundreds of men with him. Also, why did you let one go just now? Wouldn't it be better to kill them all? That guy also has an energy pistol and a lot of money. Charlotte put away his saber, carried his equipment bag, and walked toward the corridor of rest. Hey, I'm talking to you. Are you mute? Lanjir chased after him. Xiao Lei said, the reason I left one alive was so that he could tell Saray where we went. The reason I left those words was to make Saray lose face in front of those tribal warriors and temple guards. That way, he would be determined to hunt me down. Are you crazy? He has hundreds of men with him. Can you kill them all? Charlotte smiled. I don't want to kill all of them. I just want them to help us fight a safe path. Lanjir was stunned. You're the most cunning person I have ever met. You want to use Sar and his men as cannon fodder, right? Charlotte smiled. Sar uses me as cannon fodder. Why can't I use him and his men as cannon fodder? On the way to the Canyon of Origin, we will have to deal with more than one Blue Titan. If you use Sar and his men as cannon fodder, do you want to fight your way there with me? Did you and Polisai really get together? Aren't you changing the topic a little too inexplicably? We're talking about a plan of life and death. You guys have only been together for a few days. Isn't your self-control a little too bad? I don't want to talk about this with you. Do you like coquettish women? Did she seduce you? Or did you lie to her? How many times did you sleep? Can you stand it? This was Charlotte's adventure to the corridor of rest. He suddenly wanted that Blue Titan to suddenly rush out. At dawn, the rain finally stopped. The mountain torrent did not erupt, but the road was getting harder and harder to walk. After a sleepless night of trekking, Charlotte and Lanji finally arrived at the corridor of rest. In front of them was a long and narrow valley with endless mountains on both sides. Under the cover of the morning sun, a thin mist lingered. Occasionally, the roar of a ferocious beast could be heard from the depths of the forest. That roar was suspected to be the roar of the blue dragon. That roar suddenly reminded Charlotte of an old friend of his, the blue dragon Sunflower. He thought of the direction of the mountain where the roar came from and roared. Roar! Lanji suddenly pounced on him and covered Charlotte's mouth. What are you doing? Do you want to lure the blue dragon or that blue titan over? Charlotte did not roar anymore. He suspected that it was the roar of the blue dragon, but the blue dragon that made the roar might not be Sunflower. If another blue dragon rushed over and lured that blue titan out, it would be terrible. Lanji released her hand from Charlotte's mouth. Don't drag me down if you want to die. This forest is not as simple as you think. The Ahemis tribe is only in the safest 4th region. This is the territory of the blue dragon in the 3rd region. I don't know why that blue titan came here, but I don't want to meet it. There's a spirit mine in the corridor of rest. That blue titan is probably coming for that spirit mine. Let's go there and take a look. There might be some unexpected gains. Charlotte looked into the depths of the corridor of rest. He had obtained a lot of information from that spirit, or including the specific location of that spirit mine. Are you really going to provoke that blue titan? Lanji glared at Charlotte. What do I have to say to make you understand? Charlotte was already walking in that direction. You can go back. I won't force you to stay. Then give me that spirit, or don't even think about it. Lanji waved her fist at Charlotte, but still chased after him. She had no choice. At the bottom of the narrow valley was a river. Last night's rain had turned the river muddy, and the waves slapped against the rocks with a rumbling sound. Charlotte brought Lanji along the rocky beach by the river and walked deeper into the canyon. Every time they walked, he would leave a scratch on the rocks with his saber. At the beginning, Lanji would secretly flip the rocks over or throw them into the water. But after Charlotte picked those huge rocks that weighed thousands of kilograms to mark, she had no choice. Roar! The roar of a ferocious beast came from the top of the mountain above the canyon. This time, Charlotte was sure that it was Blue Titan's voice, and it sounded a little like the voice of the blue dragon sunflower. He looked in the direction of the sound, but even with his vision and his ability to see through the dense forest, he couldn't see through it to find the target. Charlotte didn't respond because he was low and had nothing to hide. If it was the blue dragon sunflower, it should have already seen him. He thought to himself, if only it was the sunflower. It could take me through the 3rd district smoothly. As for that blue titan, leave it to Serene and his people to deal with. That guy's following us. Lanji's reaction was very nervous. If we meet the blue dragon, you will protect me, right? You have so many energy pistols on you. Do you still need me to protect you? Charlotte said with a smile. Have you ever shot a blue dragon without an energy pistol? Lanji suddenly asked. Charlotte was slightly stunned. No, why do you ask? Lanji said, no, it's not strange for you to say something like that. The blue dragon scales have the ability to absorb energy, and the blue moon people's energy pistols are useless. The blue moon people never enter the forest of rest, and this is a very important reason. The blue dragon scales have the ability to absorb energy? Charlotte was very surprised. What about Blue Titan? Blue Titan doesn't have that ability. That ability is unique to the blue dragon. The blue dragon is the guardian of this forest, Lanji said. Although the blue dragon is not as powerful as Blue Titan or the rock spirit, and is ranked 3rd among the 4 great beasts of the forest of rest, neither the blue titan nor the rock spirit will take the initiative to attack the blue dragon. If the blue dragon mistakenly enters their territory, they will warn first and only attack as a last resort. Why is that? Charlotte was even more curious. Lanji shook her head. I don't know. The Ahimas have lived in this forest for more than 3,000 years, but we still don't know much about this forest. Also, I don't understand why the Blue Moon people destroyed human civilization but never touched the forest of rest. Charlotte suddenly thought of the energy tree. Could it be that it gave the blue dragon special abilities and status? Chapter 1421. Half a day later, the spirit mine finally entered Charlotte's line of sight. It was on the other side of the river, in a col where 2 mountains were connected. Everywhere else was densely forested, but there was no vegetation in that kernel. It was all black rock, and only a few weeds or short shrubs grew in some muddy areas. They looked especially tenacious. There was a man-made road at the entrance of the col that extended all the way into the kernel. At a glance, one could vaguely see a few incomplete rock buildings standing at the end of the road at the bottom of the kernel. Although he could not see the spirit mine, Charlotte knew from the information stored in the spirit or that it was there. About 1,500 years ago, the Ahimas discovered this spirit mine and began to develop it. At that time, The Blue Moon people had not yet invaded this planet, and the Ahemus were full of confidence in their mission. Later, the Ahemus miners who developed this spirit mine kept dying mysteriously, and the spirit mine itself was almost completely excavated, so it was abandoned. To this day, the cause of the deaths of the miners was still a mystery. The Ahemus tribe never came back to excavate the spirit mine. My father said it was an ominous place. Longier, who was looking at the call with Charlotte, said, "I have a very bad feeling. Are you sure you want to go in?" Charlotte said, "My goal is to go to the Canyon of Origin, not this spirit mine." Longi rolled her eyes at Charlotte. "Then why are we still staying here? Let's go. If we're discovered by that blue titan, we won't be able to leave." Charlotte said, "That's what I'm worried about. That blue titan has taken over the corridor of rest, and it's cutting off the Ahemus tribe's only path to the Canyon of Origin. How can we just go there like that? Maybe it went to hunt somewhere else. This is our chance to pass through the corridor of rest." Longier said, "I don't know why, but I have a bad feeling." "Do you?" Longier's expression changed instantly. "Don't scare me." Without waiting for Longier to finish speaking, Charlotte suddenly grabbed Longier's hand and pulled her into the forest behind them. Longier hurriedly looked back, but she didn't see anything. The mountain valley where the spirit mine was located was quiet, and nothing appeared. Nothing rushed out of the forest on either side of the Colonel. Charlotte's reaction was more like a sudden lunatic. Beside the riverbank was a forest. Giant trees stretched from the valley all the way to the top of the mountain, their crowns blocking out the sun. Rushing into the forest, Charlotte suddenly stopped in his tracks, but in the next second, he hugged Longier's waist and threw her to the ground. The ground was covered with dead branches and leaves. It was very damp. "What do you want to do?" Longier was even more nervous. Charlotte's actions obviously made her think something she shouldn't have. Charlotte covered her mouth and began to kick the dead branches and leaves on the ground. He said, "Quick, use the leaves to bury yourself." Longier was stunned for a moment, but she quickly reacted. She imitated Charlotte's actions and used her feet to kick the dead branches and leaves on the ground. At the same time, she used her hands to cover herself with the dead branches and leaves. The two of them quickly used the dead branches and leaves to bury themselves. Longier originally left a pair of eyes outside, but Charlotte grabbed a handful of leaves and covered her eyes. Just as Charlotte's hand went into the dead leaves, a blue beast suddenly rushed out of the call across the river. In fact, it was not accurate to use the word beast to describe it. The word monster was more appropriate. It weighed at least 50 tons, and its limbs were as thick as the pillars of a building. It could trample a taisha and a meat paste with 1 foot. With such weight and such limbs, every step it took shook the ground, causing the earth to tremble. It looked like the Qilin from Eastern mythology. It had a lion's head and antlers, but it did not have dragon scales. Its skin was very smooth, like a blue jade agate. Its front limbs and head were about 6 meters tall, and the length of its head and tail was about 10 meters. The thickness of its back was about 3 meters. It was a true colossus. Just its body gave people a mountain-like pressure. Who would have the courage to fight such a colossus? It was Lon Tan, the second-ranked beast in the Forest of Rest. Charlotte's gaze pierced through the dead branches and leaves that covered his face. When he saw Lon Tan rushing out of the call, he could not help but feel fear in his heart. When he entered the Forest of Rest, Longi had described Lon Tan to him. She said that Lon Tan could climb trees and rocks like an ape, and its sharp claws could easily break a towering tree. At that time, he did not believe it, but now he believed it. However, he still did not understand how such a huge Lon Tan could climb trees. A normal tree would not be able to support its body that weighed dozens of tons. Although Longi could not see Lon Tan, the trembling of the ground still made her tremble in fear. Charlotte was also very nervous and afraid. However, he still reached out through the dead leaves and grabbed her hand. He held her hand, using this method to relieve the tension in her heart. Lon Tan stopped by the river. Its 2 eyes that were bigger than a fist stared in the direction where Charlotte and Longier were hiding. Its two eyes were completely blue, like two hard sapphires. Its eyes were filled with vigilance and suspicion, as if it had discovered something. Charlotte held his breath. He was already prepared for the worst and prepared to fight. Lontan retracted its gaze and lowered its head to drink water. This reaction meant that it did not discover Charlotte and Longi hiding in the forest on the opposite bank. Roar! The roar of a beast suddenly came from the top of a mountain. Charlotte's heart stirred. It's that blue dragon. Could it really be a sunflower? Lontan, who was drinking water by the river, stopped drinking. It raised its head and looked in the direction of the blue dragon's roar. A second later, it suddenly opened its mouth and roared in that direction. Roar! Charlotte's branding power was quietly released and then expanded out of the forest, slowly approaching Lontan by the river. However, he did not spread the branding power energy field to the other side of the river. He only stopped on the riverbank opposite Lontan. He did not dare to use the branding power energy field to cover Lontan, because if the other party had some special ability to sense the existence of his branding power energy field, it would be equivalent to discovering him. He only hoped to capture Lontan's brain waves that had not dissipated and then read its thoughts. When the brain was active, it would release brain waves. Brain waves were also a kind of energy. They would move in the shape of waves in the space environment until the energy was exhausted and disappeared. Charlotte was just trying his luck. He was not sure if his branding power energy field could capture the brain waves left in the air. But when his branding power energy field stopped by the river, it quickly captured Lontan's brain waves on the other side of the river. Lontan was furious. Get lost. This is my territory. You have to leave here, or I'll eat you. Its brain waves carried a strong sense of deterrence. But from another point of view, as powerful as it was, did it need to threaten anything it wanted to eat? This deterrence also meant that it did not want to fight the target it wanted to deter, and the only target it was unwilling to fight was the blue dragon, other than the rock spirit, which was ranked first in the Forest of Rest. Roar! Roar! The blue dragon's roar was not one, but a long string. Unfortunately, the blue dragon's roar was not a brainwave. Charlotte could hear its voice, but he could not read its thoughts. Roar! Roar! Lontan's roar was also a long string. Lontan's brainwaves once again entered the branding power energy field. Don't provoke me again. I don't believe in the will of the Queen of Rest. I only believe in my strength. I am the king here, and the flying bird has already told me where you are. Get lost, or I will tear you to pieces. Charlotte's heart moved. The will of the Queen of Rest? Is it really the sunflower? What did it say to Lontan? The blue dragon's voice disappeared and no longer came. It seemed to have really left, unwilling to be enemies with Lontan. Lontan turned and left, running into the colonel. The rumbling footsteps sounded again, and the earth trembled. It was the winner of the confrontation with the blue dragon in the air. Charlotte retracted the branding power energy field and then lifted the dead branches and leaves covering his body. Longer also got up from the pile of dead branches and leaves, her forehead covered with sweat. She gasped for breath, still in shock. Did it leave? Charlotte said, It left. It went back to the spirit mine. Then let's get out of here quickly. I don't want to stay here for a moment, said Longier. Charlotte shook his head. You're wrong. If we don't get rid of it, we won't be able to leave at all. Didn't it go back? Longier was puzzled. Charlotte said, It's the king here, and all the beasts have to obey it. Whether we walk through the woods or the river, we can't avoid the sight of birds and animals. Those animals will tell that Lontan, and then you know what will happen. Birds and beasts will tell. I don't know how it does it, but it's true. Didn't you say that although you Ahemus have lived in this forest for more than 3,000 years, your understanding of it is quite limited? Longer was silent for a moment before saying, Then what do we do now? We'll be in danger if a bird finds us. Are you sure we still want to go to the Canyon of Origin? Let me tell you, there's only one Lontan here. Once we enter the second area, we'll encounter more Lontan. Even if we break through the second area, we'll still have to face the most powerful rock spirit. Why don't you go back? Charlotte said. You. Lange said angrily. Give me that spirit and I'll go back. Charlotte took out the cloth bag containing the spirit and placed it on Lange's thigh. Take it. You can go. I hope you and your father can fulfill your promise to me and protect Polisai. Lange couldn't wait to open the cloth bag. After confirming that it was real, she was stunned again. After a long while, she said, Why did you change your mind? Charlotte said, I knew that this journey would be full of danger, but I thought that the danger would be within my control. But after seeing this Lantan, I don't have much confidence. You can go. You don't have to die with me. You're a good person. Charlotte smiled. Don't tell me you're saying that I'm good. You can go. If I die, please help me bring Polisai to the underground city. She's a homeless woman. My home in the underground city is a good home for her. If you want to bring her yourself. I won't bring her to your home. Langer, he said, I want to go to the Canyon of Origin with you. You? I've changed my mind. It's rare to have someone like you bring me to the Canyon of Origin. This is the best opportunity to unlock the secrets of the Canyon of Origin. How can I miss it? Langier said. Charlotte suddenly realized something. You lied to me. Give me the spirit stone. Langier suddenly pulled open her collar and stuffed the spirit stone into her deep cleavage. If you have the ability, then come and take it. But if you dare to reach out, I'll call out and lure out that Lantan. We'll die together. Charlotte. Chapter 1422. Not daring to return to the riverbank or walk around the forest, Charlotte and Lange were trapped in the forest by the river. However, Charlotte did not want to be trapped at the edge of the forest, because that area was a very dangerous area for him and Lange. Who knew when that Lantan would come out to patrol the mountain again? And if they were unlucky, they would come face to face with it. In addition, the armed men of the Ahimish tribe would arrive here soon. Saray would definitely take the armed men of the Ahimish tribe along the riverbank road, and hiding in the forest by the riverbank would be easy to find. Therefore, not long after that Lantan returned to the spirit mine in the call, Charlotte moved up the hill with Langer. This was the most careful movement he had done since he was born. Every few to 10 meters, he had to stop and observe. If he found any birds or beasts, he would shoot them with his bow and arrow without hesitation, using this method to cut off the Lantan's intelligence line. Finally, at a height of about 300 meters, Charlotte found a cave, and he hid in it with Langer. The cave was not very big, and there were dried grass and dead leaves laid by beasts. It was obviously a beast's nest. Next to the nest, made of dried grass and dead leaves, were some bones and feces. Charlotte squatted next to a pile of feces and observed it, then frowned. This is the nest of a Taisha. We went the wrong way. Lange looked back nervously, as if worried that the Taisha would suddenly rush in from the cave. Charlotte suddenly said, It's above you. Ah! Lange screamed, took a step forward, and hid behind Charlotte in an instant. However, that Taisha did not appear. Ha ha! Charlotte could not help but laugh. You? Damn it! You actually scared me. Lange realized that she had been tricked and flew into a rage. She punched Charlotte's back with her pink fist. At this moment, Charlotte suddenly unslung the Taisha bone bow, slung over his shoulder. His left hand drew out a metal arrow from the quiver, and in a flash, knocked the arrow. Don't try to scare me again, you liar. Lange punched Charlotte again. A shadow suddenly appeared at the entrance of the cave. It was a shadow that appeared when something huge blocked the light of the eternal sun. 3 seconds later, a Taisha suddenly jumped down from the top of the cave and stared at the visitor in its home with its 2 huge eyes. Whoosh! A metal arrow flew out from the bowstring, and with a ka-ka sound, it pierced into the head of the Taisha. This Taisha majestically made its entrance, thinking that 2 delicious desserts would be delivered to its doorstep. It didn't expect that before it could scare its food, its bestial life would come to an end. Blood spurted out, and Taisha fell to the ground. Its corpse almost blocked the entire entrance of the cave, causing the light in the cave to suddenly become dim. You're not lying to me? Langer, it was stunned for a long time before she spoke. She was still in a state of shock. You're not lying to me? Langer, it was stunned for a long time before she spoke. Do you think I like to lie like you? Charlotte said. Langer was a little embarrassed. Normally, she would have quarreled with Charlotte, but she didn't this time. We'll wait here until it gets dark. I think Serene will get here before dark, Charlotte said. All right, I'll lie here for a while. I'm really tired. Langer walked to the Taisha's nest and lay down. She was too lazy to check on the Taisha's corpse. The Taisha's nest was very soft. Although it was dirty, it was very dry. It was much better than sleeping on the wet ground in the forest. Langer did not sleep last night, and she was always on high alert to prevent being discovered by the Lantan. Even Charlotte felt a little exhausted, let alone Langer. When Langer walked to the Taisha's nest and lay down, he also walked to the Taisha's nest and lay down. Langer glanced at Charlotte, who was lying beside her, and suddenly covered her chest. Don't even think about taking it back. Charlotte just glanced at her indifferently and didn't say anything. Then, he closed his eyes and quickly fell asleep. He had already obtained all the information from that piece of spirit ore. That piece of spirit ore had lost its value to him. Moreover, he had taken the initiative to give it to Langer. Why would he steal it? Hey, you're not really asleep, are you? If you're asleep, what if that Lantan suddenly comes? Hey, get up and do what a man should do. Langer pushed Charlotte. Charlotte didn't even open his eyes. You brat, if you wanted to stand guard, just say it. Why are you pretending to be asleep? You let a woman stand guard for you while you sleep. How ungentlemanly. Langer rambled on. Charlotte didn't even have the slightest reaction. Langer wanted to sleep, but she didn't dare to. She opened her eyes and looked at the entrance of the cave, vigilantly paying attention to the movements outside. But she couldn't hold on for long. Slowly, she also closed her eyes in a daze. She had a dream. She dreamed that she was lying on a cold alloy experiment table. She didn't have a single piece of clothing on her. Charlotte stood beside her with a lewd smile on his face. His hands moved all over her body, touching her chest and her butt and her thighs. But he wasn't satisfied. He even used a finger to slowly squeeze into her body. Her body suddenly had a self-protective awareness and reaction. It secreted mucous membranes that instantly stuck to his finger. He was shocked and hurriedly pulled out his finger. Although his finger was pulled out, a piece of skin on his finger was left behind. At this moment, she suddenly opened her eyes and found that she wasn't lying on an alloy experiment table. Instead, she was in the nest of the Taisha. Her side was empty. Charlotte wasn't in this cave. The cave was quiet and dark. It was difficult to see anything. The sky outside the cave was dark. The cold wind blew through the trees on the hilltop, making a rustling sound. She realized that she had unknowingly slept until the sky turned dark. Charlotte wasn't by her side. Langer suddenly became nervous. Her voice echoed in the cave, but she didn't get any response. She suddenly thought of something and hurriedly put her hand into her chest. Her hand quickly touched the spirit stone that was sandwiched between the two mountain peaks. She then breathed a sigh of relief. Langer walked out of the cave. Standing at the entrance of the cave, she could vaguely see the narrow canyon below the hillside and the call across the river. She still didn't see Charlotte, but she saw the firelight coming from the direction of the corridor of rest. The firelight wasn't just the light emitted by the torches. There were also the illumination devices of the energy pistols. Beams of light swayed here and there. There were many of them, and the scene was a little chaotic. Roar! Lantan's roar suddenly came from the call, accompanied by the sound of heavy footsteps on the ground. That Lantan had come out of the nest. Charlotte had successfully lured the armed men of the Ahimish tribe here. A battle was about to begin. But where was Charlotte, who had lit the fuse? Langer subconsciously turned and ran. Whoosh! A hand suddenly reached out from the withered leaves beside Langer and grabbed her ankle. With a fierce pull, she fell to the ground. Without waiting for her to resist, the person hidden in the withered leaves flipped over and pressed down on her, firmly pressing her to the ground. Ugh, ugh. Longier's mouth was also covered, and she couldn't make a sound. There was also a stench coming from her nostrils. It was the stench of Taisha's feces, and it made her want to vomit. Don't make a sound, or else we'll die here. Charlotte's voice sounded in her ear. It was very soft, but it was enough for her to hear it clearly. Charlotte let go of Longier's mouth. Longi suddenly hooked her hand around Charlotte's neck and bit his ear. From her tongue came a string of sounds that only Charlotte could hear. The next time you press me down like this, I'll bite off your ear. Also, you really stink. The smell of Taisha's feces can chase away wild beasts. You better put some on too, or else I can't guarantee your safety, Charlotte said. I don't want to, Longier, he said. While they're fighting, we'll escape from here. No, when they start fighting, we'll go take a look at the spirit mine, Charlotte said. Longier was dumbfounded. Charlotte's gaze moved in the direction of the colonel. I have a feeling that Lontan wouldn't come here for no reason. It must have discovered some secret in that call. Or there's something it wants in that spirit mine. I'm very curious about the reason that Lontan stayed here. Aren't you curious? Longer also shook her head like a rattle drum. Xia Lei said, the Ahimish tribe mined that spirit mine 1,500 years ago. Towards the end of the mining period, miners kept dying mysteriously. In addition, the spirit mine itself was almost completely mined, so it was abandoned. You're also an Ahimis. Aren't you curious? Longier's head was still shaking like a rattle drum. Charlotte shrugged. Whether you go or not, I'm going to take a look. Longier glared at Charlotte. You're really... Before she could say anything, a deafening roar suddenly came from the colonel. That was the roar of that Lontan. Its sprinting figure had already stopped at the colonel. The Lontan's voice echoed in the canyon. It was even louder than a bell. The response of wild beasts came from the canyon. Some were on top of the mountain, some were in the dense forest, some were in the depths of the canyon, and some were even at the bottom of the river. Different beasts, different cries. At this moment, their voices reverberated in the canyon. The aura was like the roar of a magnificent army before they charged. That Lontan was calling out to its people. Saray brought more than 600 people with him. They were also carrying top-notch cold weapons and energy weapons, and all of them were dressed to the teeth. In the eyes of Saray and the armed men of the Ahimish tribe, even if Charlotte escaped, their strength was enough to kill that Lontan and open up the passage to the Canyon of Origin. But now, whether it was Saray or the armed men of the Ahimish tribe, they would never have thought that they were not facing a Lontan, but a kingdom of beasts ruled by a Lontan. Rumble, the deafening sound of hooves, converged at the bottom of the canyon from different directions. Soon, all kinds of wild beasts appeared at the bottom of the canyon. They frantically ran towards that Lontan. Then, birds of all sizes appeared in the sky. They flapped their wings and flew, letting out sharp cries, and also converged at that colonel. The Lontan army was gathering. Longier's mouth was wide open, unable to close it. But at this moment, Charlotte grabbed a soft, smelly lump from somewhere and wiped it on her face and neck. Chapter 14:23. Ugh. The strong stench almost made Langier faint. She opened her mouth and started to vomit. Charlotte suddenly covered her mouth with a hand that had just smeared feces on her. At that moment, the stench was not just a smell, but a smell. She even had the urge to kill Charlotte. But at that moment, the ground under her suddenly shook, followed by the rumbling sound of hooves. It was not just one beast, but a large group of them. Fear instantly invaded every nerve in her body. She was so nervous that she clamped her legs together. Boom, boom, boom. A group of beasts that looked like bison ran past the cave. The closest one to Charlotte and Langier was only a few meters away. Langier and Charlotte could even smell the smell coming from it. When the beast ran past Charlotte and Langier, it suddenly stopped and looked back. In its eyes, there was only a pile of dead leaves. There was nothing else. It sniffed with all its might, and a foul smell immediately entered its nostrils. The stench of Taisha's feces seemed to remind it of where it was. It did not dare to stay, so it turned and ran away. Charlotte then climbed down from Langier's body. Langier gasped for breath. Actually, it was not only her. Charlotte was also covered in cold sweat. If it was just facing a group of beasts that looked like bison, Charlotte was not afraid at all. But now was an unusual time when the two armies were at war. If Lontan found out that he and Langier were here, it might order an army of beasts to kill them. Then it would be terrible. All of a sudden, Langier crawled out from the pile of dried leaves and pounced on Xiaolei. Her hands and legs locked together, like a beautiful vine wrapped around Charlotte's body. Charlotte said in surprise, "What are you doing? Don't mess around." Langier suddenly stuck her face to Charlotte's face, rubbing her face against Charlotte's face. She was protecting Charlotte from smearing her face with feces. Charlotte didn't know whether to laugh or cry. In such an environment where one's life was in danger at any time, she was actually so petty. Just as this thought popped up in his mind, Langier suddenly kissed Charlotte on the lips. Bah, bah, ugh. Charlotte was also disgusted, but just as he opened his mouth to spit twice, Langier's tongue took the opportunity to drill into his mouth. There was shit on her lips, but not on her tongue. Her tongue was sweet. Charlotte froze, not knowing what to do. The life and death situation, the strong stench, and the sweet taste of the tongue, all of these stimuli added together, and he became hard in a strange way. Moreover, he became hard very quickly. That thing was like an ancient siege attacker, rushing to the city gate with a ladder. With a clatter, it lifted the ladder and pressed it against the city gate. Their tight entanglement, the confrontation between the concave and the convex, Langier suddenly felt something. Her body also froze, and then she hurriedly climbed down from Charlotte's body. Their eyes met, and there was a strange feeling growing between them. Bah, pervert. Langier broke the silence between them. She avoided Charlotte's eyes, and her face turned blue. Charlotte smiled bitterly. You were the one who kissed me. How did I become a pervert? Who told you to smear feces on my face? I wanted to let you taste the taste of tyrant feces. Langier said angrily. Even as she said that, she sneaked a peek at the area between Xiaolei's thighs. She saw that thing sticking up high and couldn't help but spit again. Roar. Langier's angry roar came again. This was the bugle call to attack. Boom, boom, boom. Boom, boom, boom. The army of beasts charged at the armed forces of the Arximus tribe, and the momentum was like an army of thousands charging. Rumble. Energy bullets exploded in the canyon, and the flames soared into the sky. Rock fragments whizzed everywhere. There was no need for negotiation before the battle. Langier wanted to kill the Arximus who invaded his territory, and the Arximus wanted to kill Langier who blocked the passage. There was no need for negotiation, and the slaughter was on the line. The battle was fierce. The beasts at the front were blasted into minced meat by a wave of energy bullets. Flesh and bones flew in the sky, and blood burned the river red. Blue blood would only appear in high-level beasts. The blood of low-level beasts was red. It was unknown if this was a difference bestowed by the Creator, or if it had evolved for some reason. This was also a mystery. The birds of prey in the sky also joined the battle. They swooped down from the sky, using their sharp claws to grab the Arximus on the ground, and then tore them apart or pecked them to death. However, some of them were also blasted to death by the Arximus energy pistols. Blood splattered everywhere. Both sides suffered casualties, and the beasts suffered even more. After all, they did not have the perverse defense of the blue dragons, and could not withstand the energy weapons of the Arximus, as well as the top-grade cold weapons. However, there were more of them, and they were not afraid of death. The beasts at the front fell, and the beasts at the back buried their heads and charged forward. Even if they could not kill an Arximus, they could still exhaust the Arximus ammunition. Kill them. Serene's voice was deafening on the battlefield. We must open the passage tonight and kill that Langier. If you die, you will enter the heroic spirit tower of the heavenly temple. Charge! Kill! Serene's words were like a fire that ignited the passion of the Arximus. Hundreds of armed Arximus soldiers formed an arrowhead formation and charged forward. Bows, spears, alloy knives, energy weapons, all were fired. The blue tin finally moved. It roared angrily and charged toward the battlefield with its 4 hooves. It weighed dozens of tons, but it could reach a speed of at least 200 yards per hour. When it sprinted, the rocks on the riverbank were all crushed by its stampede. The Langier's charge was like a 50-ton tank charging at a speed of 200 mph. What would happen to the Arximis who stood in its way? Boom, boom, boom. Energy bullets exploded beside the Langier, and arrows rained down on the Langier. But the strange thing was that the Blue Titan was actually able to dodge the energy bullets that could harm it while moving at high speed. It moved left and right, dodging amidst the flames and explosions, yet it was still able to maintain a terrifying speed of 200 kilometers per hour. Those arrows that couldn't be dodged were like tickles when they hit its body. They couldn't even pierce through its skin. It could climb trees and cliffs like an ape, and it had the strength to snap large trees. That was Langier's description of it. However, it seemed that this description was not comprehensive and had even underestimated the Langier's strength. Crash! The Langier charged into the arrowhead formation of Arximis in the blink of an eye. The arrowhead, formed by the most elite temple guards, immediately collapsed. Some of the Arximis temple guard were turned into meat paste under the Langier's feet. Some turned into pieces and flew into the air, and some turned into cannonballs that flew to the rear, knocking down a large number of Arximis armed personnel. On the hillside, Charlotte retracted his gaze, a chill running down his spine. That's scary. That's the Langier. If a few of them worked together, they could probably wipe out the resistance branch led by Contunanana. Are you still going to the Langier's lair? A hint of disdain appeared on Langier's lips. Yes, I'm going now. This is the best time, Charlotte said and left without hesitation. You really want to go? Langier looked like she was about to cry, but she caught up with Charlotte after a few steps. Without Charlotte's protection, she would not be able to leave this place alive. If she followed Charlotte, she would still have a chance of survival. She knew that very well, but she could never understand Charlotte's motives. The battle between the Langier and the Arximis continued like a raging fire. Wounds appeared on the Langier's body, and large amounts of blue blood flowed out. The corpses of the beasts were densely packed on the battlefield, so many that it was impossible to count. Blood dyed the battlefield red, and so did the river. The strong smell of blood filled the air, and the wind could not blow it away. The Arximis tribe was also in a terrible state. They left a ground full of corpses, and their position was constantly retreating. Who would win in the end? No one knew, but no matter who won, it would be a Pyrrhic victory. Just as the two sides were locked in battle, two heads quietly popped out of the Red River. They then quietly climbed ashore and crawled toward the mouth of the valley. No one noticed the human boy and the Arximis woman, and no beast saw them either. The Arximis tribe's armed men and Langier's beasts were in a frenzy, and they did not notice the situation behind them. When they approached the mouth of the valley, Charlotte got up from the ground, bent over, and rushed into the valley. Langier followed closely behind Charlotte, her two big breasts swaying in front of her chest, as if she could shake him off at any time. The valley was not deep, and Charlotte and Langier quickly ran to the side of the flying stone buildings. Past them was the abandoned spirit mine of the Arximis tribe. Charlotte had already seen the entrance to the spirit mine in a remote corner. It looked like the entrance to a coal mine, but there were no tracks, and it was bigger. Xiaolei did not hesitate. He walked towards the entrance of the mine. Langier suddenly reached out and grabbed him. I'll ask you one last time. Are we really going in? If we go in, we might be blocked by the returning Langier. Charlotte looked back at Langier. This is the only chance. I won't give up. I came to the Forest of Rest to unravel its secrets. If I want to go in, you can leave. Oomph. You're saying this to me again. I'm not a coward. If we die together. Langier let go of Charlotte's hand and strode towards the entrance. Charlotte was stunned for a moment, then smiled bitterly and followed behind Langier into the cave. Langier turned on the illumination device of an energy pistol and the bright light shone into the depths of the cave. Blue rocks could be seen everywhere in the tunnel, and they reflected the light of the energy pistol. The tunnel was suddenly filled with white and blue light, and it gave off a dreamlike feeling. If one of these blue rocks was taken back to Earth, it would definitely be the best sapphire, and there was no market for it. But in this place, they were worthless. The two gradually went deeper, and they could no longer hear the explosions and roars of the beasts in the valley. Chapter 1424. The tunnel in the mine was tall and wide, and if it was paved with rails, it could pass through trains. The tunnel was winding, and it ended 2 kilometers down the mountain. The space in front of him suddenly widened, and it was a large, oval pit. The passageway wound around the pit until it reached the bottom of the pit. The bottom of the pit was about 50 meters from the highest point of the tunnel. It was not hard to imagine the scene of the Ahemus mining here more than 1,000 years ago. It must have been a crowded scene. Lontan's nest was at the bottom of the pit. Standing at the edge of the pit, Charlotte saw a nest made of branches, hay, and bones at the bottom of the pit. The two of them came to the bottom of the pit. It was extremely quiet here, and the only sound Charlotte could hear was the sound of Lon G.'s breathing. Her breathing was short, and she was very nervous. Charlotte's gaze quickly swept around. He saw some spirit ores hidden in the blue rocks, but the quantity and grade were not very high. His heart was filled with confusion. That Lontan couldn't have come here for these spirit ores, right? This is that Lontan's nest. What are you looking for? Lonji, or spread her hands. If you want spirit ores, you can dig them now. If you want its nest, you can dismantle it now. She was obviously saying these words out of anger, but Charlotte did not care. He released the energy of the branding power and let it spread throughout the entire pit. His branding power energy field could capture the brain waves of humans and animals, and could also discover the energy fields of some special items, and even produce a resonance reaction. So, to a certain extent, his branding power energy field could also be used as a detector in certain specific environments. When the branding power energy field spread across Lontan's nest, the branding power energy field suddenly trembled. Charlotte's heart skipped a beat. This was the vibration caused by the branding power energy field detecting something, and the energy structure was affected. His eyes jumped slightly, and his gaze penetrated Lontan's nest and penetrated the ground. However, his X-ray vision was also interfered with. His X-ray vision could only penetrate Lontan's nest and could not penetrate the rocks below. Charlotte walked towards Lontan's nest. Lonji, but looked at Charlotte strangely. Are you really going to destroy its nest? Charlotte said, if you want to leave this place earlier, then come and help me destroy the nest. Longier, the two of them took action, and Lontan's nest was quickly demolished. At the bottom of the nest was a bluish rock, no different from any other place. The rocks were pieced together to form an uneven ground, but the connection between them was very stable. Even with construction machinery, it would take some time to dig it out. Huh, can you tell me what you're looking for? Lon G.'s mouth was full of sarcasm. Charlotte, on the other hand, was still staring at the rocky ground at the bottom of the big nest. His brows were tightly furrowed, and he was deep in thought. Although his line of sight could not penetrate the blue rocks, his branding power energy field could still sense the mysterious energy released from below. The kind of energy seemed familiar, as if he had encountered it somewhere before, but it was only a vague feeling, and he could not make an accurate judgment. Moreover, after tearing down the nest, he stood on the rocks below the nest, and the resonance of the branding power energy field was even stronger than before. All the signs pointed to the fact that there must be something hidden under these rocks, and that Lontan was here to occupy the mountain and become the king because of that thing. Let's go. We have to get out of here, Lon just said. Entering Lontan's nest was a wrong decision to begin with. It's not too late to correct it now. Charlotte did not move. He suddenly said, give me 2 of your energy pistols. 2? What are you going to do? Longer asked curiously. Charlotte said, I'm going to blow up this ground. Are you crazy? Was infuriated by Charlotte's stubbornness and inexplicability. Charlotte reached out a hand to Longier. I must have owed you in my previous life. Longier smiled bitterly. In the end, she took out 2 energy pistols from her backpack and handed them to Charlotte. Charlotte removed the energy clip from one of the energy pistols and placed it in the gap between 2 rocks. He retreated more than 10 meters and fired a shot at the energy clip. Boom! A violent explosion rang out in the mine, causing the ground to tremble. When the smoke and dust settled, there was a huge pit in the rock ground. It was almost 2 meters deep and 1 meter in diameter. This was the effect of the energy clip that had been removed. A single shot could not achieve this effect. Charlotte came to the side of the crater and looked over. An oval-shaped rock that was pure to the extreme appeared at the bottom of the crater. It was sparkling and translucent like a beautiful jade. But this was not what attracted Charlotte. What attracted Charlotte was that it was wrapped in a crystal palm. The crystal palm lay quietly in the oval rock. It was also crystal clear, but it was a pity that he could not see through it. The mysterious energy was also emitted from the crystal palm. It gave Charlotte a familiar and mysterious feeling. Now, Charlotte finally understood why he felt this familiar feeling. It was because the crystal palm and the crystal skull he obtained in Jerusalem released the same energy. The crystal skull, the crystal palm. Charlotte was shocked. Could it be that the crystal skull is not a single entity, but a part of a crystal skeleton? If that's the case, then there should be crystal arms, soles of feet, leg bones, ribs, and so on. Where are those parts? However, the question that shocked him even more was, if there really was a crystal skeleton, what kind of skeleton would look like that? Could it be that there really was a God in this universe that transcended all living beings? There really is something. Longier, who came over to see a joke, also saw the crystal palm at the bottom of the crater. She was shocked at first, then her eyes lit up. Crystal palm? Is this real? Give it to me. Without waiting for Longier to jump into the crater, Charlotte had already jumped in and picked up the transparent rock. It was actually not a rock, but a substance similar to amber. It had been impacted by the explosion, and there were many cracks on its surface. When Charlotte picked it up, the cracks began to expand. Charlotte hit it twice with his fist, and the oval shell completely shattered, turning into pieces of amber fragments. The crystal palm was completely exposed. The moment Charlotte's palm touched it, his brain suddenly shook violently. It felt like someone had hit him hard with a wooden stick, and then the scene in his vision changed. The mine was gone, and Longier was gone. Instead, there was a white light, and he could not see anything. What a strong light! Charlotte subconsciously raised the back of his hand to block the light, but at that moment, a face suddenly appeared in the white light, staring at him. He wanted to see what the face looked like, but he could not see it clearly at all. The face was black in the white light, and it was very blurry. Boom! The illusion disappeared in the blink of an eye. The mine was back, and Longier appeared in his line of sight. The crystal palm was still in his hand, and nothing had changed. Charlotte's mind was filled with countless speculations. I saw a similar illusion in the crystal skull. Is this some kind of signal? That face, what is it? In the face of such a thing, even the most imaginative speculation was useless. Can I take a look? Longier looked at Charlotte eagerly. She lay down beside the crater and extended her hand toward Charlotte, preparing to take the crystal palm. Charlotte suddenly came back to his senses and said in a stern voice, "Don't touch it." Longier hurriedly retracted her hand when Charlotte raised it. Then, she said unhappily, "Stingy, I just want to take a look. I'm not asking you to give it to me." Charlotte said, "If you want to live, you'd better not touch this kind of thing. I'm telling the truth. I've come into contact with things related to it, and those people have either died or gone crazy." Longier was dumbfounded. She could not believe such an absurd statement, but judging from Charlotte's reaction, she felt that what Charlotte said was true. Charlotte's gaze fell on the crystal palm again, but it was not X-ray vision. He did not dare to see through it, because it would interfere with the energy field of his branding power in his brain, causing him to fall into an illusion. He observed it with his normal vision, and only then did he realize that it had not been broken by someone, nor had it been chopped off by someone. Instead, it had been removed from the joints. It maintained the complete structure of the palm, without the slightest bit of damage. An imaginary scene suddenly appeared in his mind. In the endless starry sky, a crystal skeleton was drifting. For some reason, it suddenly disintegrated. Its head flew in one direction, its arms flew in another direction, and the soles of its feet flew in another direction. There were also its leg bones and ribs. This hypothesis was quickly rejected by him, because he had found the crystal skull on Earth. If there had been a crystal skull drifting in space, even if it had been decomposed, how could it have traveled through thousands of years, and who knew how far away it was to fly to Earth? Unless it had something to do with the Sky City. All the mysteries he wanted to solve seemed to be related to the Sky City. In order to solve all the mysteries and return to Earth 1,000 years ago, he had to find the Sky City. We've got it. Let's go. Longi reminded him. Charlotte shook his head vigorously and put the crystal palm into his equipment bag. Longer, he said, I never believed that there was anything in this mine. If there was, we Akimas should have discovered it long ago, but we didn't. So when you said you wanted to come in and take a look, I didn't believe you could find anything at all. But you actually found something? How did you know that the strange palm was hidden here? Charlotte climbed into the crater. Because of some information. The Akimas mined here more than 1,000 years ago, but people kept dying mysteriously in the later stages. The reason for this is still unknown. I've encountered a similar situation. People who came into contact with this thing either died or went crazy. So I had a hunch that there might be something hidden here, so I insisted on coming to take a look. He gave such an explanation, but in fact, he was not very sure himself. What he had experienced was that people who came into contact with the fragments of the world box either died or went crazy. However, the crystal skull could make people have strong hallucinations and even control their brains. In Jerusalem, it had disrupted the magnetic field and caused the detection equipment to malfunction. It had even killed Israeli explorers to achieve its goal of protecting itself. These were all evidence that it could make people go crazy like the world box, or even kill them directly. Otherwise, why would Isotab and Kasha Ruiz be so afraid of it? So that's how it is. But how did you know it was hidden down there? After all, it's 2 meters underground, and it's full of inferior ores, Longer said. Charlotte said, Don't ask. Let's go. We'll be in trouble if we don't leave now. Longi curled her lips in dissatisfaction. Ow. The roar of a beast suddenly came from the direction of the mine. Chapter 1425. It's that Lontan. Longi, said in horror. Boom, boom, boom. Dull footsteps came from the direction of the cave entrance, and the ground shook with every step. The blue dragon had really returned. The battle in the canyon had ended, and Lontan was still alive. The winner of the battle was obviously it. Lontan's extremely heavy footsteps approached, and Charlotte also became nervous. If it was in the wilderness, he would still have the courage to fight Lontan. But in this enclosed environment, Lontan could take a few of his attacks, but he could not even take one of Lontan's attacks. Quickly think of a way. Longer was so anxious that she kept stomping her feet. Charlotte's brain worked quickly. His brain gave one plan after another and also rejected one after another. There was only one tunnel in this place, the mine. If Lontan came in from a mine, he and Longi would probably have to step over its corpse to escape. But to fight Lontan in a narrow tunnel? Perhaps even Isotab would not do that. Quick, it's almost here. Longi was already at a loss. Charlotte looked up at the top of the mine and suddenly said, Go up and stick to me. We'll ambush it. Longi suddenly understood, and she rushed to the rock wall closest to her. As she ran, her coat, pants, and shoes all fell to the ground. When she climbed up the rock wall, she only had the blue and black striped jumpsuit left on her. In order to survive, she was going all out. Rushing to the bottom of the rock wall, Longer jumped up high, and then stuck to a smooth rock with a plop. She had just stuck herself to the rock when Charlotte flew over from behind and landed on her back with a bang. Charlotte was only left with his underwear and the equipment bag on his back. His opponent was Lontan, so he did not dare to be careless. He had to give it his all. On Charlotte's back, the skin on Lange's back, buttocks, and thighs immediately secreted the mucous membrane unique to the Ahemus. In the blink of an eye, Charlotte was glued to her back. With that degree of stability, she and Charlotte were simply conjoined people with two heads. Charlotte got on his upper body, and Langer, he climbed to the top of the mine with her hands and feet. Charlotte held the Tai Sha bone bow in his hand and placed a metal arrow on the bowstring. He was already prepared to fight and was only waiting for that blue titan to appear. Lange quickly climbed to the top of the pit, then moved to the junction of the pit and the tunnel, and finally stopped on a flat rock. This position was about 30 meters away from the tunnel and the entrance to the mine. Boom, boom, boom. Lontan's footsteps echoed in the tunnel, getting closer and closer, and the frequency of the ground trembling became more and more obvious. Lange was so nervous that she was trembling. Charlotte took out the energy pistol with the energy clip from his backpack and handed it to Langier. Don't be nervous. Wait for it to come in. I'll shoot it first, then you shoot it in the head. Got it? Langer nodded and then asked, will I die? Charlotte moved his lips to Langier's ear. If you don't die, I'll give you a bonus of 100,000 Blue Moon dollars. Is what you said true? Langier's eyes shone with excitement. Charlotte nodded. Of course, I'm serious. I mean what I say. I'm going to fight it. Lange gritted her teeth and said, then aimed the energy pistol in her hand at the junction of the tunnel and the mine. Charlotte said, you don't understand what I mean. I'm asking you to wait for me to shoot it first before you shoot. When I shoot it, you have to stick to the rock with all your might and not move at all. Do you understand what I mean now? Lange nodded her head vigorously. 100,000 Blue Moon coins as a survival bonus was enough to make her smarter and sharper than before. Boom, boom, boom. Lontan was getting closer and closer. The man and woman at the top of the mine held their breaths. Both of them were actually very nervous. But the more nervous they were, the more focused they became, and the more sensitive their nerves became. Charlotte could clearly feel Langier's perky buttocks pressing against his sensitive spot. It was plump, fertile, and bouncy. The mucous membrane secreted from her perky buttocks stuck him tightly to her body, one-on-one. That spot was very sensitive, and he only had a thin underwear on his body. The pitiful amount of fabric was not enough to relieve all the stimulation. Therefore, even in such an environment, at such a critical juncture of life and death, he still couldn't control himself, shamelessly getting hard. 150,000, Lange suddenly said. Her voice was soft, and her cheeks were blue. Why? Charlotte was extremely nervous. Not only was he about to face Lontan, who was ranked second in the Forest of Rest, but he also had to face the stimulation of Lange, who was stuck to him. In fact, he had experienced it the first time he was stuck to Langier. That feeling was like entering Langier's body. It was very wonderful. The second time, needless to say, Polisai let him experience all the beauty of an Ahemus woman's mucous membrane. He was even more certain that when he was stuck to an Ahemus woman, the stimulation in the senses was actually second only to doing that kind of thing with a woman. Therefore, at this time, if Langier crawled around with him on her back and used her perky buttocks to stimulate that spot of his, he might get that high or something. You know it yourself. Lange bit her lip, and her eyes were filled with shame and anger. Shoo! Charlotte made her keep quiet. Boom, boom, boom. Lontan's footsteps were already very close. Charlotte quietly released the energy of the branding power, and then enveloped the area where the tunnel and the pit interface were. Lontan had not come in yet, but if he could capture its brain waves, it would be equivalent to foreseeing the enemy's movements. The energy field of the branding power at the junction of the tunnel and the pit was like a fishing net. It had already been opened and was only waiting for the fish to enter the net. There really was a fish that entered the net in the next second when the net was cast. Damn Ahemus. When I recover from my injuries, I will definitely flatten their tribe. Maybe I should dig out that treasure and leave here with it. That treasure can allow me to obtain even greater power. It definitely will. Damn, I'm bleeding too much. I should eat something. I'm so hungry. These were all Lantan's brainwaves captured by the energy field of the branding power. After capturing this, Charlotte suddenly retracted the energy field of the branding power and completely held his breath. He and Lanji were like a part of the rock, motionless and silent. The target this time was Lantan, who was ranked second in the Forest of Rest. He did not dare to underestimate the enemy or be careless. Lantan's head finally appeared from the tunnel, and its head almost touched the top of the tunnel. The moment its head appeared, Charlotte suddenly pulled the Taisha bone bow to the limit, and then released the bowstring. Whoosh! The metal arrow flashed in the air, and with a crack, it pierced into Lantan's head. Charlotte did not choose a random place to shoot. He chose a wound on Lantan's head that had a piece of flesh missing. The metal arrow hit the wound, and without the obstruction of the flesh, it instantly pierced into Lantan's brain. Ow! Lantan let out a miserable cry and then rushed forward. An arrow pierced through the brain, and it actually did not die. Boom! Lanji waved her hand and fired, but unfortunately, she was one step too late. The bullet fired from the energy pistol hit the ground beside the tunnel and immediately created a pit in the ground. Lantan could not stop its flying figure, and with a series of rumbling sounds, it rolled to the bottom of the mine. Only then did it see that its nest had been destroyed. Ow! Lantan roared at the sky. It saw Charlotte and Langier stuck to the rock, and its eyes were about to spit fire. Charlotte then released the energy field of the branding power. Since it had already been discovered, there was no point in hiding the energy field of the branding power. The energy field of the branding power that was released again quickly captured Lantan's new brainwaves. Despicable Ahemus woman. Despicable humans. They tore down my house and stole my treasures. I want to eat them. I want to eat them. Anger. Every brainwave was filled with anger and murderous intent. Lantan suddenly rushed toward the rock wall, but its speed was clearly much slower. Previously, when it was fighting the Ahemus tribe's armed forces, its speed could reach a terrifying 200 kilometers per hour, but now it could not even reach 50 kilometers per hour. Even so, Lantan quickly rushed to the bottom of the rock wall. It fiercely jumped up, and its 4 elephant legs stuck to the rock wall. Charlotte saw very clearly that Lantan did not climb up the rock wall by relying on the mucous membrane on Langier's body, but its 4 feet suddenly spread out, and even part of its legs turned into suction cups that only an octopus had. Its bones could actually be disassembled in its body. Its skin and flesh could actually be flexible to such an extent. Previously, Charlotte did not believe that Lantan could climb rocks and trees, but now he believed it. Boom! Boom! Lantan quickly moved towards Langi, and Charlotte, sticking close to the rock wall. Boom! Langi fired another shot, and this time it hit Lantan's back. However, there was no scene of flesh and blood splattering, nor did Lantan fall. The bullet fired from the energy pistol only left a hole on Lantan's back, a hole the size of a human head. Hurry up and run. Langier screamed and suddenly crawled toward the junction between the tunnel and the mine. 2 geckos, one big and one small, one chasing and the other fleeing. Stop! Charlotte suddenly shouted. Steady! Langi, who did not seem to hear Charlotte's voice. She was already scared silly. She crawled quickly, and Charlotte had no way of firing an arrow. Once they reached the surface, he would be unable to stop Lantan's charge in a narrow tunnel. Their ally was making a fatal mistake in a life-and-death situation. What should they do? Charlotte suddenly bit his lips and straightened his back. Langi, seemed to have been electrocuted. Both her legs reflexively closed up, and her whole body entered a defensive state, motionless. Charlotte instantly knocked an arrow, and in an instant, the bow was fully drawn. With a turn of his hand, he shot an arrow at the approaching Lantan. The metal arrow drew a slightly shining trajectory in the air, and in an instant, it entered Lan Tan's head. This arrow was even more ruthless than the previous one. After entering Lan Tan's head, only the feather of the arrow was left outside. Lan Tan's forelegs could no longer hold on to the rocks, and with a sad cry, it fell to the ground. Boom! Dust surged, and blue blood splattered on the ground like raindrops. Chapter 1426. Lan Tan was dead. Charlotte and Langer were still at the top of the mine, glued together. Charlotte was still in the attacking position before shooting the arrow, while Langer was still in the defensive position with her legs clamped together. Time and air seemed to freeze at the same time, motionless. With the threat of death removed, both of their minds and nerves instantly relaxed. But another feeling quietly grew and grew stronger. Lanji was the first to recover. She turned around and glared at Charlotte, her eyes full of shame and anger. What were you trying to do just now? What did I do? Charlotte pretended not to know. Lanji said, why are you pretending to be stupid? If you keep pretending, I'll stick to you. Don't. Charlotte immediately became nervous. I told you to stop, but you didn't listen. If you go down, we'll be in great danger, and we might even be trampled to death by Lan Tan. If I don't think of something, will you stop? A pervert will always be a pervert, always thinking of such a method. What are you going to do with my loss? Lanji continued to stare at Charlotte. Charlotte smiled bitterly. I think we should go down and take a look at that Lan Tan. Maybe it's not dead yet, so we have to get rid of it first. Make it clear first, or I'll stick to you. Lanji drew in her butt. Charlotte suddenly became nervous again, resisting the strong stimulation. 100,000 blue moon coins. I'll give it to you when we go down. 150,000. Why don't you go rob someone? If you don't stick to me. Lanja not only drew in her butt again, but also clamped her legs together. Charlotte's brows immediately furrowed, and his voice trembled. Okay, I'll give you 150,000. Let go of me. If I let go of you, we'll both fall. I'll go down now. Don't let your imagination run wild. Lanjier moved down. Charlotte gritted his teeth and endured the stimulation, wave after wave. He felt that this process was even more nerve-wracking than when he shot Lan Tan. However, he had to endure it. Otherwise, he would pant. He had actually forgotten that in the Forest of Peace, he could freely control every single nerve in his body, including the largest one. However, sometimes men would selectively forget some things. Lanji was also very uncomfortable. She was also enduring the stimulation. However, she had to use her waist, buttocks, and thighs to complete the crawling action. The electrostatic contact made her face turn bluer and bluer. In the end, she couldn't help but want to find a crack in the rocks to hide in. Fortunately, he was able to get off the ground. That Lan Tan lay on the ground, not moving at all. Charlotte came to Lan Tan's side alone, while Lanji counted the money on the side. 150,000 blue moon coins was enough for her to forget the awkward experience and not care about Lan Tan's life or death. Charlotte used an arrow to poke at Lan Tan's closed eyelid, but Lan Tan did not react. His branding power energy field also did not capture any brain waves from Lan Tan. It was really dead this time. Charlotte went to one of Lan Tan's feet. He squatted down and carefully observed the sole of its foot. There were also densely packed holes made of skin and flesh on its sole. It was these holes that produced a huge suction force that gave it the ability to climb rock walls and trees. However, as the time of its death dragged on, they were slowly closing. Charlotte sighed in his heart. It's really a different place to nurture a different kind of creature. I'm afraid that only a planet like the Hope Star can give birth to a monster like Lan Tan. If there is such a creature on Earth, it's almost invincible. After this battle, there was a trace of worry in his heart. One Lan Tan was already so difficult to deal with. How could it be easy to pass through the second district that was ruled by the Lan Tan race? However, when he thought of the Sky City and the crystal palm that he had just obtained, His desire to explore the Canyon of Origin did not decrease, but increased. He finished counting the money and walked over. She took out a simple alloy dagger and began to cut Lon Tan's skin. Strangely, Lon Tan's skin, which even bullets could not tear, seemed very fragile under the alloy dagger and was easily cut open. Charlotte looked at the alloy dagger in her hand and asked curiously, "What kind of dagger is this? What material is it made of? I've never seen you use it before." Lonji did not even look at Charlotte. "This dagger is called Ice Soul, an heirloom of the Asmiz Empire's royal family. More than 3,000 years ago, the Asmiz Empire civilization was very advanced. We mastered the secrets of spirit ores and could use psionic power. We could forge very high-grade alloys, and this Ice Soul was the pinnacle of the Asmiz Empire civilization at its peak. The Stargate that transported prisoners, the dagger Ice Soul, that could easily cut open Lon Tan's skin. The Asmiz Empire of more than 3,000 years ago was full of mystery, and people could not help but imagine. Why didn't you take it out just now?" Charlotte said. Lonja said, "This dagger is very important to me. So why should I take it out and get it to you? Besides, even if I gave it to you, would you be able to use a dagger to kill Lon Tan?" Charlotte smiled bitterly. What she said was right. Even if she took out the dagger just now, he would not be able to use a dagger to fight Lon Tan. With the thickness of Lon Tan's skin, even if it stood there without moving and let him stab it 100 times, it would not be able to. Moreover, it could tear him to pieces in one bite. Longier's hands and feet were very agile, and she quickly cut off a large piece of Lon Tan's skin. The Lon Tan skin that she cut off with the Ice Soul was very thin, even thinner than ordinary cloth. It looked like it was just a layer of skin. "It's so thin. What's the use?" Charlotte asked curiously. Longier said, "This is Lon Tan's skin. In your human black market, 1 square meter can be sold for 100,000 Blue Moon dollars. Its defensive capabilities are several times better than Tai Sha's skin. Moreover, it's very soft and can be made into close-fitting armor to wear under clothes. This is something that can be bought with money. If you don't want it, I'll take it all." Charlotte then moved closer. "Lend me the dagger. The rent is 50,000 Blue Moon dollars." Longer also extended her hand to Charlotte. After a full 2 hours, Charlotte and Lonji finally left Lon Tan's nest. Not only did the two of them cut off Lon Tan's skin, they also removed several bones and tendons. Lon Tan's bones and tendons were top-quality materials for making bone bows. They were far stronger than Tai Sha's bones and tendons. This was not difficult to compare, because Tai Sha was only the lowest-ranked beast in the Forest of Rest, while Lon Tan was the second-ranked beast. Although the black market outside had a price for Lon Tan's skin and bones, who could enter the Forest of Rest to hunt Lon Tan? So it was just that there was a price, but no market and no amount of money could buy it. The blue moon in the sky refracted the light of the eternal sun, and the valley was filled with a cold blue light. It was quiet. There were many beast corpses lying in the valley, and the air was filled with a thick smell of blood. Those beasts had obviously been left here to guard Lon Tan's nest, but they had all been killed. The smell of blood and corpses made Charlotte, who had just walked out of the mine, suddenly realize something. He suddenly pounced and pushed Longier, who was walking beside him, to the ground. In that instant, a few arrows flew into the mine from above. There was also an energy bullet. It flew into the mine and exploded in the tunnel of the mine. It was also during this process that Charlotte saw clearly that there were at least a few dozen armed men from the Akimish tribe in this valley. Some of them were behind the rocks in the front, while others were on the slopes on both sides, surrounding the mine in a fan shape. The armed men of the Akimish tribe were the ones who had won, but they did not dare to rashly enter Lon Tan's nest. There were only a few dozen left out of more than 600 people, and they could no longer bear the casualties. They surrounded this place, and their plan was probably to trap the Lon Tan and let it die from its injuries, or wait for the Lon Tan to come out to hunt for food and then kill it. But they clearly did not expect Charlotte and Longer to come out of Lon Tan's nest. But this did not affect their intention to shoot Charlotte. As soon as they saw Charlotte, a few armed men made their move. Charlotte did not dare to hesitate. After pouncing on Longier, he carried her and rolled into the mine. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Boom, boom, boom. Arrows and energy bullets flew over like raindrops, and explosions rang out continuously. The mine trembled and rocks fell. Damn it. We killed that Lontan. Why didn't they ask before shooting? Longi was furious. Charlotte let go of Longe, who was under his body, but his face was relaxed, and there was even a hint of a smile at the corner of his mouth. We're trapped. I think they'll soon confirm that the Lontan is dead, and they'll organize people to attack this place. This place is narrow, and their energy bullets and firearms are very difficult to deal with. We're dead. Then why are you still smiling? Longier stared at Charlotte. Think of a way. I can save you, but I have a condition, Charlotte said. Help me make the Lontan leather armor, and I'll help you take care of the enemies outside. Give me another 50,000. If you bargain again, I'll let you give me 100,000, Charlotte said. I promise you. Miser. Longier's expression looked like she was cutting her flesh. Charlotte took off his equipment bag, then took out the parts of the Avenger 1000 sniper rifle and quickly equipped it. Against Tai Sha and Lontan, he couldn't use human weapons, but against the Ahemus, human weapons were very useful. Charlotte, I know you're inside. Sare's voice came from outside the cave. His voice was full of contempt and disdain. You're the most despicable and shameless person I've ever seen. That Lontan has already been seriously injured by us, but you're still hiding in the dark and taking advantage of us. For the sake of those dead heroic souls, I swear I'll kill you. Your corpse. Bang! A gunshot rang out. A bullet whistled through the air. The head of a temple guard beside Sare instantly bloomed, and he fell before he could even make a sound. Sare was instantly stunned on the spot. Bang! A gunshot rang out, and another tribal warrior fell to the ground. Sare hurriedly hid behind a rock, his face black and blue. He had just been clamoring to kill Charlotte, but in the blink of an eye, Charlotte had killed 2 of his own people. This slap in the face was really painful. The Ahemus outside, listen up. Charlotte's voice suddenly came from inside the mine. Go back to your tribe. Your wives and children, your parents are still waiting for you at home. One of my targets is your leader, Sare. I only want his life. I don't want to kill you anymore. I'll give you one last chance. Leave or die. Choose for yourself. Sare suddenly roared. He only has one gun. Charge in and kill him. As Sare's voice fell, more than 10 Ahemus tribal warriors roared and charged into the mine. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.